Welcome to Rightside Radio. I'm Amy Beth Shaver with JP on a glorious Monday. Allison Sinclair will be back on Thursday. Y'all should see where she is. But you'll have to stay tuned because we'll talk about it when she gets back. We have a fabulous Monday in store for you. We're not going to get through all the stack of stuff, JP. We're just not.
There's too much.
There's too much. So whatever we don't get to today, part of it we're going to roll over into tomorrow. Couple of things. Number one, happy President's Day. Took me a minute when I was walking this morning and I saw the children's at home and I thought, oh, it's President's Day.
Yeah.
Hey, this is great. So to kick off President's Day, we need to know you get three favorite presidents and one who was just the worst. Okay? 3 faves. Oh, wait, maybe I'll give you 2 the worsts.
Give as many of the worst as you want.
Whatever. You can do whatever you want because it's Monday.
Yeah.
All right. And it's, you can do what you want. So top 3, and you can have more than 3 the worst president. Is that fair?
Yeah.
I like your idea, JP. That's it. And here is a thought I came across this weekend before we roll into, by the way, a lot of news. We have Alabama news at 4:00. Alabama. And there's a lot of news. Okay. Beyond that, we have clips of Marco Rubio's speech. I don't know if you've heard it. It is one of the best speeches I've ever heard in my entire life. It was a masterpiece. And it is something when you can go to Europe and when you're done, they give you a standing ovation. The things he said in there are things we must talk about because he gave Europeans, and I believe he was in Germany, permission to take each of their countries back. So we'll get to that. Masterful. We're talking to Terry LaPointe at 3:00. She's running against Mike Rogers. She's also a part of the Trustville Republican Women's Club. She's written a book about kidnapping in regards to foster care. You just don't want to miss it because I read her book. And when she comes, we'll talk about her book. You're going to want her book. But before that, here's the quote. And then JP and I are going to rattle off our favorite presidents and the worst. Here's the quote. It's very simple. Something to keep in the back of your mind on this Monday. If you can be triggered, you can be controlled. True power is the ability to observe a situation without absorbing it. That's good, isn't it?
That is very insightful. If you can be triggered, you can be controlled.
If you can be triggered, you can be controlled. And how often do we hear today, I'm triggered? We're going to talk to your dad tomorrow.
We are.
And you know what? We're going to talk to your dad about that.
He's got thoughts. He's told me his thoughts a lot.
Well, I want to hear the good sir's thoughts on how to communicate well with people who'd rather just cut you off, or maybe they have cut you off. But how do you deal with people who are so easily triggered? So that's our theme for the week. And then on Wednesday, I have a dear friend who just happens to be comms director for ALGOP, but we're talking about something completely different, and on from there. So it is going to be a banger of a week. Now, JP, because you texted first with this genius idea, who are your favorite presidents, sir?
Well, first, did you get off of school growing up for President's Day?
Yes, I did.
I didn't.
Why did you get off of school?
We never got off school for President's Day when I was growing up.
But did you get off for MLK?
I can't remember, actually. I think we did. But no, yeah, I actually remember being at school on President's Day, and like our teachers in elementary school would do like special President's Day stuff. We were in school. So whenever I hear like what you said earlier about all the kids being off for President's Day, I'm like, why did I miss out on that? I don't get it.
I'm sorry, JP. Yeah, we were out of school, maybe not in high school, but I remember when it would say Washington and Lincoln's birthday or whoever, as a kid, and we celebrated.
Interesting. Well, okay, so how about we do each of our favorite presidents and a quick why about each. Why each is one of our favorite presidents, okay? My first president is a gimme, like, easy one, and I feel like every American's favorite president should be this person. It's George Washington. So, like, whenever you ask for your favorite like, somebody's favorite president, I feel like the answer should always be, well, obviously Washington, but other than Washington, and then give your
Mhm.
actual favorite president. But Washington for me, I don't know. It's not hyperbolic to say we literally would not have America without Washington when the Continental Congress wanted to give up in the Revolutionary War and he just decided to cross the frozen Delaware and kill them in their sleep. Like it's gutsy stuff like that. We would not have America without Washington. Um, Not only as a general but as a president because they literally were willing to like crown him king and he could have been president up until he died, but he decided to step back after 2 years because he thought that's what would be best for America. And some of the stuff he said about political parties is so insightful and true. So just like give me easy one. Washington should be every American's favorite president, number one. Number two, I may go off the beaten path a little bit here, but my favorite other than Washington is Calvin Coolidge.
Really?
I've
Do
always
tell.
I've always been fascinated with Silent Cal because he was so good, but he was so humble and so that's why I had the nickname. Was it Silent Cal or Quiet Cal? I think it was Silent Cal.
Silent Cal.
Because he was so humble and had such a respect for the office that he just did a good job and let his work speak for himself. Um, he was so before his time in terms of remigration. If you look at some of the stuff he said, like imagine what he would think now, but he was aware of the migrant problem. Like I said, it pales in comparison to what it is now. But look at what he said about how much migration would destroy America from within and erode our values, erode everything that's good about America. Remigration was the best way forward. And it was so insightful and true. But I think about how he would think of migration now. How'd you let get to this point?
Mhm.
But just that combination of being so humble that the office is bigger than you, but also doing such a great job. Um, he kind of was deemed like the first libertarian president, but not really. I think they say that just because of his humble nature. But there were so many aspects about Coolidge that I loved, and I thought he was way before his time. For number three, I don't know. It's a tie for me between Teddy Roosevelt and Andrew Jackson. And both for the same reason. Teddy Roosevelt was just a man's man. I mean, getting shot in the chest and standing up and continuing your speech and saying it takes more than that to kill a bull moose. Like, what a stud that guy was. And he was part of the Rough Riders. Like, he was just a strong man's man. But I mean, obviously, everybody knows about his, national wild his preservation of national parks and starting the National Park Service. But then you look at his Monroe Doctrine, his big stick policy. He wanted America to be strong and control its sphere of influence in a forceful protective nature. And I think he was way before his time on that as well in terms of how he uh, used the Monroe Doctrine in Latin America and such. And Andrew Jackson the same way of, people may call me a fascist for saying this, but he knew how to use the executive power and even blur the line a little bit of like the Supreme Court has made its decision. Now let them enforce it. Like, okay, do what you got. Come enforce me. Some may say that's not good, but using the executive power to do what needs to be done to fix America, I think Andrew Jackson was great at that. So I don't know. I'll give you four. Just another one. Tied for third, Andrew Jackson and Teddy Roosevelt, but that would be my three. What about you?
Well, I don't I have more on the worst list than the best list. Washington is number 1, and not just because he's my husband's favorite and yours, or because
Mhm.
we have a lot of books on our shelf about Washington that Chris has read, and maybe I've gleaned some things, but he understood the assignment. He did not seek power. He was a courageous leader. The Delaware story is one that we know well, probably the best story that people can identify with. You and I were having a conversation about people off air thinking certain people are great leaders and other people aren't. But if you have men who have nothing, like no shoes, and they're willing to cross and really die for you and for their country, you understand the assignment.
Yep.
He understood that it wasn't about him, that it was about his country. And that to me is incredible, or that he eschewed future leadership when his time was done. He epitomized gentleman farmer. He went back home. He did his thing. It was the way it should have been. And it's exploded since then. But he understood the assignment.
Yeah.
And we don't have enough people who understand that today. Just riffing, probably, I would agree, Teddy Roosevelt, and I'm actually listening to Against the Odds about his story regarding the Amazon, which, by the way, that is a great podcast, Against the Odds.
Story.
And so it's just telling that story, refreshing the memory. And so remember more about him from history class than I do recent readings, but the story that they're telling about that Amazon, he's unbelievable. The courage. So Washington for wisdom and leadership, Roosevelt would be for courage, and would be for he was just I don't know if we're allowed to say that word, but it's not a bad word. He was just a dude.
Yeah.
Like you said.
A man's man.
He's a man's man. And then probably TJ, just because of the Declaration. I like him for that reason alone. Yeah. But like I said, Washington's kind of the penultimate. Yes, I like Trump. Okay, Abraham Lincoln. He wasn't. The more I dig, the more I'm like, he's good.
Yeah,
he was good. But I'm becoming more wishy-washy about him the older I get. Is that fair?
Me too. Yes.
Yeah. So I'm learning and I'm listening and I'm thinking,
He was not a Christian by any means.
No, and I'm watching some Chad Jackson, my new favorite documentary filmmaker, about Uncle Tom 1 and 2. Now he has MLK series, and he's taking it back to Abraham Lincoln. And I learned some things last week that I was like, oh, I need to rethink some things.
Well, I will say this.
But he did what was right.
Yes,
And we are grateful.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'll leave it at that.
Yeah.
Yes to Trump, yes to Reagan, but probably Washington, TR, and TJ.
That's good.
Now, the worst, I think the worst was LBJ because of what he did to the family with his kicking out, basically rewarding single motherhood, kicking fathers out of the home. He also really punished preachers for being able to stand up in church and speak out for who they would recommend for president. But I think LBJ, and I do think LBJ was a terrible human being, especially when it comes to things he said on the record in recordings about Black Americans. You do this for them and they'll vote for you. They'll vote Democrat for the rest of their life. The things that he said are horrific. And he used people. He was jealous to the core of John F. Kennedy. I'm going to leave it at that. But I think he was an awful, awful president. I don't care what they say about him regarding being the lion of the Senate, and he was legendary. He was a terrible human being. And I do not like him at all. At all.
That's a good one. I would say Andrew Johnson is one that comes off the top of my head first, only because I agree with you on Lincoln personally. How to preserve the Union, though, he was the man for that moment, and he needed a Lincoln in that time. But him being assassinated right after the Civil War, Andrew Johnson could not have been the worst president to succeed.
It's so true.
Lincoln.
He was so bad.
Well, not only from the aspect of him being a Southerner and from Tennessee, which is why Lincoln made him his VP to sort of try to bridge the gap and bring back the country to Union after the Civil War. But his speech on Inauguration Day, he was drunk.
Yep.
He also was drunk speaking to the Senate beforehand. And all the work to preserve the Union, you needed Lincoln to push it through and keep going down that path, however hard and painful it was to keep going and reunite the country properly. But Andrew Johnson being the guy to fulfill the role, it's almost like he sat in the middle and let things kind of muster, and the Civil War ended, and the right leadership wasn't there to really push us through that moment. So not only was he a drunk, not only was he a mess, but the worst person to succeed Lincoln, I would say. So Andrew Johnson's probably up there for me.
Okay, I realize we talked a lot.
We did.
We'll be back.
Enjoyed our conversation with Catherine Robertson, who is a candidate for Attorney General of the state of Alabama.
Catherine began her public service in Washington as clerk and counsel to Senator Jeff Sessions on the U.S. Senate Judiciary Committee.
She served as the vice president of the Alabama Policy Institute under Gary Palmer and has been the chief counsel in the Attorney General's office under Steve Marshall for the past 10 years.
In this interview, we discuss what makes her qualified to be Alabama's next Attorney General and specific issues that matter to Alabamians and fun questions so that you get to know Catherine, the individual.
We hope you enjoy our following conversation with her and get to know Catherine Robertson.
Welcome. We are here with Catherine Robertson, who is running for Attorney General of Alabama. Thank you for joining us today.
Really fun to be with y'all. Thanks for letting me wear a hat.
I love your hat.
Yeah.
I'm upset I don't have my hat on.
You're left out.
I'm totally left out today.
Hers is pretty cool, though. I can't read it because my eyes are going bad, but it's
Marshall County Sheriff's Office. Sheriff Phil Sims gave me this hat. He's a good dude. I love to wear it.
I am guessing he endorsed you.
Yes.
Nice, nice. Mine's Rightside Media. You can have one too.
Yeah, love it.
Blue or black? Take your pick.
Oh, yeah. Looks good.
So why don't we we're going to get right to it. First question, pretty basic. What qualifies you to be Alabama's next Attorney General?
Well, I came into the office with Steve Marshall. I beat him by about a month, but we learned the job together. We learned the job over the course of the last 10 years, but really those first 2 or 3 years getting your arms wrapped around the office. And in my mind, if you have an opportunity to elect someone that's had that kind of training and that kind of experience over a decade with everything we've seen and everything we've experienced, seems like a pretty good choice. So that's why I'm running. I just hated to see 20 years of experience of that office of executive leadership walk out the door at the same time, because I think continuity there is going to serve well all of our newly elected constitutional officers.
Right now in Alabama, what do you see as the biggest weaknesses in the criminal justice system?
Well, we've corrected a lot of them. I'll say that. I mean, when we got there in 2016, our legislature was in a posture of really being concerned more about prison overcrowding than kind of the back end outcomes of leniency. And so we made a variety of policy changes, working with our legislature. And so the criminal justice system right now is a lot tougher than it was. I think the weaknesses right now come down to really two things. One, I'm not sure our DA's offices have the resources they need to move cases quickly. And two, there are just parts of our state where the elected judges just don't serve the people as well as they should. And so the slowdowns, I would say, are the biggest weaknesses. Now, last year I drafted a law that passed called the Speedy Trial Act, and we can get into that. But that is a tool that's going to be used and has been used to speed up violent crime cases. But it's just the slowdowns. We wait too long for cases to be tried, for justice to be served. And a lot of times those offenders are out on bond committing other crimes in the meantime. It's a real problem.
Are there activist judges? Do you see that frequently? Judges in Alabama pushing their own agenda? Or do you just think this is purely a manpower kind of office flow?
I think there are places in our state where the elected judges are Democrats and have a different philosophy, probably a more lenient philosophy. And you can get into a really deep debate about whether we should have elected judges or not. I think ultimately I think elected judges is a good thing, but once they're there and they're really lenient and people get mad, it's really difficult to recruit candidates to those races, and it's really hard for them to beat incumbents, and so you get a little stuck. But I don't know that it's activism as much as just a mindset of, I'm here to show grace or be lenient, and where you fall on that spectrum probably has a lot to do with your personal philosophy and ideology.
So to the hat you're wearing and the illegal immigrants that are being gathered up in Marshall County. It's a place Alabamians probably know a lot about. That may be one of the first places people go, oh, that's in Marshall County. Yeah. What are the legal tools that Alabama has to respond to the consequences of illegal immigration?
Yeah. States have been hamstrung in large part to do immigration enforcement themselves. Alabama tried to pass a law to empower the state and empower law enforcement several years ago, and most of that got struck down. So the best tool we have now is partnerships. Sheriff Phil Sims, who you just mentioned, has a great partnership going with ICE. And so it's just a collaborative, cooperative relationship. I think the unique role that the AG's office plays is the national litigation that we take part in. I mean, of course, we're going to be facilitating law enforcement relationships. We even have a federal law enforcement liaison to make sure we're all staying on the same page. But
hello and welcome back to Rightside Radio. I'm Amy Beth with JP. We are looking forward to our guest at 3:00 today. She is running against Mike Rogers. Her name is Terry LaPointe. I don't know if you've heard of her or heard her speak or read her book, but she is a great lady. And I hope we can also secure JP a podcast with her because I have a lot of questions and we won't have enough time. Okay, we're going to close the loop on our conversation. Here's the deal. We were talking about Lincoln. We are very grateful for Abraham Lincoln. JP said something earlier, and I wonder what you think about this, but he was the right man for the right time. The older I get, though, the more I look into ideas that I thought were true and perhaps find out that they were not. He did what he had to do. We wouldn't be who we are today without Abraham Lincoln. I don't mean in any way that I didn't like him. I'm just finding out more about him that I think, But it brings me to this and the problem that we have in both parties, and that is we have this idea that we must like everything about a person to support them, and that's not true.
Yeah.
If that were the case, nobody would run for office, nobody would be in leadership, and we wouldn't get anywhere. I mean, if we use that standard that you could only have the most perfect people, then, and you're a Bible-believing Christian, then the people that God used would also never be used because they are not great people, some of them. They were, or they didn't do great things. They didn't always make great choices, just like us. So that is the thing that I'm loosening up on the older I get. There is a biblical standard, and it is how close to the biblical standard does a person come. That's the standard. But I am also letting go of some ideas I had in the past because we tend to mythologize people in the past without fully knowing everything, and that takes time and study. Am I wrong?
No, you're right. And before we go to break, I agree with everything you said. Before we go to break, do you want to know who my most overrated person is? Or most overrated president is?
Yes.
And this is going to be a grenade as we go to break.
Oh, my word. Who?
Ronald Reagan.
Oh! Woo! Okay.
And we'll be back.
the president has had a very difficult time getting his immigration plans and executive orders and all that into action because the blue states come rushing into court. And so one of the most important things we've done is to back him up and to say the states are harmed when the federal government doesn't do X, Y, and Z appropriately. And that's why we support the president. He has every right to do this, whether it was the travel ban from a few years back or the Remain in Mexico policy or the parole for immigrants. We have supported the Trump administration or fought the Biden administration in all of those spaces, which is something only the AG's office can do.
What are the non-negotiables for election integrity in Alabama, and as far as what the Attorney General can control?
Yeah. We obviously support all legislation that strengthens our elections. When we are inevitably sued, we defend those laws, to the furthest extent we can, and we've been very successful. When it comes to election fraud that takes place now, our office hasn't been referred, voluminous cases of election fraud, but there are places where you start looking at the number of people who voted, the number of absentee votes, and then the population there, and you kind of start to wonder. And so we've got tools to deal with voter fraud. It is a crime in Alabama, and we investigate anything that's forwarded to us.
So, talking about elections, what safeguards do you see that need to be implemented or reinforced when it comes to elections?
Yeah, I think my view on kind of the safety and security of our elections is that we do it pretty well. But I do think that Joe Lovern has a bill this session to deal with election audits and that kind of thing. I think you can always be improving. You can never be too careful. Thankfully, again, there are only a few hot spots in our state. Some of them are in the Black Belt where the numbers just don't seem right. But I mean, the non-negotiables are, we don't do ballot harvesting. That's illegal here. We have voter ID. I mean, that's a total non-negotiable. And we have clean voter rolls, which I think we've made a big effort to do. The federal government sued us under Biden when Secretary of State tried to clean up our voter rolls. We fought that. So there are limitations on, how you accomplish these things. But I think it's something you've always got to be striving to improve.
What do you think the Attorney General's role is in ensuring that our state government itself, the agencies and departments, are serving the people well? And how would you approach that part of the job?
That's a really interesting question, because I think when you're out talking about the role of the AG's office, they either know us as the crime fighters or the, Trump supporting, state sovereignty fighters. Both of those things are true. But there's this big middle section of what we do in the AG's office that never makes any headlines, but that I believe, as a former state think tank girl, really is an important role to improving our state government. We represent every state agency and every department and every regulatory board. And that gives you access to information where you start to see, what are we doing over here? What are the trends over here? Why are you getting sued all the time? Why are you making life hard on these people? And it is a little bit of a stick. I mean, we don't run the agencies. We don't direct the cabinet members, but the role we play in representing these departments can sometimes expose, bad things that need to be corrected, or things that just aren't efficient or aren't aligned with Alabama values. And so that's a role that that I have, taken on personally. All of the agency councils report through me. And so we try to have a really good system to make sure that we're doing our part to keep our government honest.
What does that look like if the reports come to you and there's trouble? Walk us through, when would somebody come to you, and then what steps happen from there?
Yeah, so any legal document that's filed in court on behalf of the state of Alabama has Steve Marshall's name on it. But those people aren't all under our roof. They're housed in different agencies. And so obviously we want it to be a collaborative relationship. I mean, we try to all, work together and work on the same team. And when I see filings or complaints or suggestions to hire outside counsel, when those things come across my desk, I mean, my first reaction is not to be hostile towards it. But sometimes you start seeing trends that you don't like, whether it's spending too much money, whether it's taking positions that really don't seem that conservative or aligned with Alabama values, or maybe not taking seriously enough things that the legislature has put in place. And so, starts with a phone call, but we do have tools. We can remove attorneys from cases. We can superintend cases.
Welcome back to Rightside Radio. I'm Amy Beth Shaver. Y'all are in for a surprise. Okay. But we're first before the surprise. JP, take it away.
iPod News. What's the impact of this partial government shutdown, and do you worry it's going to go on for a while?
Well, I hope it doesn't go on for a while, and I am worried about the security of America because of the shutdown. As you heard in the clip before, this affects the Coast Guard, this affects FEMA, this affects Secret Service, our TSA agents that are working at the airport every day, CISA, our cybersecurity officials are all going without pay right now. And the people they're trying to affect, the ICE officers, the CBP officers, they're fully funded for the next 4 years. So it's really short-sighted on the Democrats' part to shut down the rest.
I think we need to call it for what it is.
Secretary
There is
Clinton.
a legitimate reason to have a debate about things like migration. It went too far. been disruptive and destabilizing, and it needs to be fixed in a humane way with secure borders that don't torture and kill people.
And this is why we do not want our allies to be weak, because that makes us weaker. We want allies who can defend themselves so that no adversary will ever be tempted to test our collective strength.
WBRC has obtained a copy of a recorded call of an Alabama power lobbyist discussing the bill that would strip voters of their right to elect the Alabama Public Service Commission. That is who sets your utility rates.
Now, the bill would move the APSC to an appointed body. So far, Alabama Power hasn't returned our request for information on whether they are behind this bill.
I wanted to say to whoever has her or knows where she is that it's never too late. You're not lost or alone.
Are aliens real?
They're real, but I haven't seen them, and they're not being kept in what is it?
Area 51.
Area 51. There's no underground facility unless there's this enormous conspiracy, and they hid it from the President of the United States.
Okay, then. JP, that was quite the montage.
It's a little jam-packed.
It was jam-packed. And like I told you guys, we're not going to get through all of it today. And some of it we're going to roll into tomorrow, because who doesn't want to talk about aliens, which I think are demons anyway. Okay, but you know what? We are joined. Y'all hear us talk about a friend of the show. We occupy the upstairs of his building. And you probably remember him because he ran against Gary Palmer a few years ago, wrote a book about, well, basically democracy, term limits, really. And he's just an all-around good guy. He is what would you say your title, like CEO of Omega Advisors? Yep. You need to know what he does. Like, he does so many things. Okay. And fellow Sanford Bulldog, go Dogs, ladies and gentlemen, friend of the show, I hope you'll be hearing from him often, is Jarek Wilkins.
Well, thank you so much. It's glad to poke my head in up here, and I hear you guys all the time downstairs. I'm like, sometimes I just got to come up here, but normally work interferes with that. But today's a holiday, so it's a little bit slower. So I'm like, let's come upstairs. So for those of you that don't know, when I'm not dabbling in politics or philanthropy, I do mergers and acquisitions for auto dealers. Lots of fun. But the good part about that is it affords me the opportunity to engage on so many of these great issues that we have. And to say we've had some interesting times this last week, oh goodness, it's been crazy.
So where should we start? Because we had the challenge, 2 weeks ago, and then this weekend. So ballot challenges. Beyond that, we have a recording of Stathagen and Ledbetter. That's interesting.
Wow.
And then we found out about Alabama Power, who doesn't really want to talk about it yet. So where do you want to start? Because those are huge stories, each of them.
We had the montage, and we did have Obama in there talking about aliens, and I do find it fitting. We could probably talk about Speaker Ledbetter, considering that he is a quote-unquote Republican. In fact, he was an Obama Democrat. And to think that he's, in fact, the Speaker of the House of our Republican supermajority, that's probably a great place to start.
I think we should. So he doesn't really want to do anything because he could give a crap about the Republican Party.
Well, we see what's going on with these ballot challenges, and it goes to show you why it is so important for us to make sure that our primaries are closed, and that's why he's opposed to it. What's interesting is the GOP actually passed a resolution in 2022 saying we need to close our primaries by 2024. Well, we have never seen anything with that. And none of us should be surprised, because again, the Speaker of the House made it very clear that if he did that, we would lose several members of his leadership. Well, that's a problem right in and of itself. We should be losing these people. We wonder why we don't have tax reform. We wonder why we're trailing behind other states in so many areas. It's because we're not really governing like conservatives. We vote red, and then we end up with moderates or purple, and in some cases blue Democrats in leadership in Montgomery.
Why is it hard for people to understand that? Like, we tell them these are not actual Republicans. These are Democrats. Now you see in black and white, they do not care about the party. They care about their friends getting elected or being able to participate when they shouldn't be allowed to. But how can we move the needle then and really make sure that the primaries are closed?
Well, it's going to start with all of us taking action, just like we saw with this PSC bill that came out last week. Again, I don't think anyone would argue that we need some reforms. The PSC has some serious issues, but for us to have a bill that's coming, in fact, as we come to find out, supported from Alabama Power, and looking at the timeline, it sounds like it was even written by Democrats in the first place and being pushed in this direction, shows it to be a problem. But what happened is we saw a lot of people getting active, making the phone calls, sending the emails, engaging with their legislative body, and basically causing a commotion. And that's what we're going to have to do. If we want to get things done, we've got to get more engaged in it. And we're just not. People are apathetic, and I wish they weren't, but they are.
Do you think they're apathetic because you and I can remember that we've had this conversation for so long that at some point you just lose hope?
I think part of that is the case, but I think it's also we become comfortable. We think, okay, well, what can we really do about it? But then you go and look at the fact that in our primaries, the percentage of people that actually vote in some cases is 30% or even lower if it's a special election. And those are the people making the decisions. And oftentimes, as we've seen in several of these elections, it's Democrats coming to vote in Republican primaries, and then we get moderates.
Yes.
We shouldn't be surprised.
Yep. I'm going to save this question. No, I'm going to ask it. Do you also think that part of the apathy comes from perhaps some Christians being told by some pastors, you don't really need to bother with politics?
Yeah, it seems like for most of our lifetime, we were told, oh, don't talk about politics or religion in the workplace. In fact, those are the things that we really should be talking about. I've never backed away from my faith. I took a lot of heat for it during the Republican National Convention, even when I took a stand for life when we watered down the platform. And these are things that you have to take a stand for. You should not back down from key components like this. But we've gotten to the point we've been told for so many years, oh, don't talk about that. You know, we don't want to upset family members. I mean, I could not believe the number of people telling me that their family didn't want to come to Thanksgiving dinner because they voted for Trump. I'm like, really? Whatever happened to being able to have civil discourse in disagree in a polite manner? But we've turned it in such a way that the loudest voices are often now coming from the extreme left. And those that actually think the conservative viewpoints, we don't stand up and speak. We've got to. We need to start shouting it from the rooftops. And this misconception that there's supposed to be a separation of church and state, no, guys, it is supposed to be the state saying out of the church, not the other way around. And we've got to get back to where we really need to be. We need to realize as Christians, we have a biblical and a moral responsibility to engage in these topics. Romans 13 makes that very clear.
So good. So here's the question that will weave into the other part of this whole Alabama Power situation. I think that one of the third or fourth elements in the conversation where we're talking about Stathagen and Ledbetter and what their conversation was about, we don't care about the Republican Party, whatever. We're just going to make sure our buddies can get into power. Then we have apathy. Then we have Christians that think, well, I shouldn't really get involved. The other part of it, and we saw this play out with this Alabama Power story, and we can talk about it much more on the other side, but just let's get started, is we're discouraged because we understand lobbyists are really deeply involved. They are like threading the needle. They are directing the story. They are writing the story and then maybe inviting us in, but they've already decided behind the scenes. And don't you think that that could be another reason why people are like, what good is it going to do for me anyway?
Right. And it's frustrating, especially when we talk about this PSC issue, because like I said, we all know there's issues there, right?
Yes.
You look at our rates in the state, you compare them to other states, obviously we know there's a problem with that. And then we go and hear the argument, well, everyone in office was actually appointed. Okay, Well, they're still not doing a good job.
Right.
And we talk about this issue of dark money coming into our state. And our answer to that is let's appoint the PSC. And I don't necessarily know that I would have a problem with that, especially if it's a governor like Tuberville, because I trust him to do the right thing. But when we've got an Obama Democrat as speaker and we want to give him an appointment and we're concerned about dark money, well, if we're concerned about dark money, let's talk about campaign finance reform. Let's talk about how we can structure that type of legislation. But we don't ever get that type of legislation out. We let these bills sit here. This bill came out of nowhere. It's a process issue in addition to everything else about it.
Pause right there. We're going to take a break. We're talking to Jarek Wilkins, as you can see, a brilliant businessman, community member, very involved in politics, and very wise. So I'm going to ask him to wave his magic wand when we come back. And how should it be? Okay? So don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. That's so good.
Something and we didn't see it, we can go in and say, don't listen to them, listen to us. And it's a really, really important tool that we have that's really little known, but I think we do a lot of good in that space.
I had no idea. I know we talked about it a little bit on a previous interview, but that's fascinating.
Yeah, I mean, we had an issue a couple years ago. There was a regulatory board that it was the pharmacy board, regulated pharmacists. They've since had a change in leadership, so no shade on them. But they had filed a complaint against a particular pharmacy and a particular pharmacist. And when I looked at it, I was like, that's not right. I mean, that's real life. That's your livelihood. And so we went in and dismissed the complaint against the guy. It's an unusual role for the AG's office to play. The other interesting thing is that the AG by law can't really ever have a conflict, meaning conflicts don't exist. So there have been times where we've sued a state agency, even though the agency would normally be our client, just to try to get them into compliance with what we thought the law would be. We've done that on 2 occasions. Actually, I've actually taken a stand against a state agency before. It's really unusual, but it just shows that there's so many tools that the Attorney General has that if you don't care about getting the job right and you only care about chasing headlines, none of that stuff I mentioned, you wouldn't do it. You know, I mean, there wouldn't be any use for it if you're just there for the politics of it. And so something I'm passionate about, again, I think that goes back to my experience at API and just really understanding our state government and the areas where it could be improved. And, I think with the next governor, that's certainly something I'd be able to offer. Like, hey, Governor Tuberville, you need to know I've been seeing these trends out of this agency and we're not going to be able to continue to defend this. Can you help me out? And that's how it ought to work.
That's great.
One of the things we saw during COVID was, and really actually past COVID, is DEI and SEL and all this critical race theory stuff has kind of trickled down into even rural Alabama, which people swore would never be there. But the federal government and schools, because we do take federal money, there are things that they push down that we have to follow. I'm thinking about all the Title IX, gender ideology, girls and boys and girls locker rooms and all that kind of stuff. What's your stance as if you were Attorney General of how do you protect the state and what the people of Alabama want?
Yeah.
And balance that with the federal government mandating these things happen?
Yeah, so not to nerd out on you, but like in 2016, I wrote this paper before I left API called Selling Our Sovereignty. And I laid out all the federal funding that Alabama receives, which is not inherently bad. But I said, what if some administration comes in that's hostile to our values and starts using that as a way to shove things on us that we would never vote for in the ballot box? Well, they did, and Biden learned that very early on. I mean, we had a situation one day where our Department of Agriculture called and they were like, we're going to lose our free school lunch program if we don't do this gender language stuff in all of our documents. And I was like, whoa.
It was the bathrooms. You had to have,
They threatened it through our WIC program, Women, Infant, and Children's, supplemental nutrition program. They wanted that to be genderless school lunches, and then needless to say, public schools generally. So there's 2 ways you have to approach those things. On the one hand, you're running into federal court and you're suing and you're trying to get it stopped. And we do that and we do it well. But the backside of that is somebody's got to be communicating with state agencies to say, look, we can't let you violate state law, but we also know your federal funding is at risk. Let's work through this and navigate this together. And that's a big part of the role I played. It's like, we're over here litigating, and yes, we want to win. But I mean, you know, I was writing legal memos all the time, trying to give these agency heads and their general counsels advice on, you know, not forfeiting the money, because I mean, the program is partially paid for by the federal government, but here's how you can maneuver, here's how you can navigate it, and then sort of policing to make sure that the stuff wasn't being pushed through anyway. Again, that's kind of the inside baseball part of it, but there's a lot of aspects to this stuff. You don't just file the lawsuit. There's a lot of work to do within state government, and goodness knows during COVID, I mean, I was putting out memos once a day saying, you can't do this, you can't do this, you've got to adhere to state law, and we will try to help you work through the threats coming from the federal government.
So is that what it means then, where sometimes people see the Attorney General's office as that last line of defense?
Yeah, I mean, I think the Attorney General got that tagline as the Republican AGs, not all of them. Some of them aren't a good line of defense at all nationally if they're Democrats, but they got that because it was during Obamacare. If you remember, the state sovereignty was really threatened over a provision of Obamacare that was going to like force states to do Medicaid expansion and some other things. And for once, the United States Supreme Court said, okay, states are independent and separate sovereigns. Like, we've got to acknowledge that. And so that kind of became the tagline. And what it means can be on the national front. It can also mean in the state, even though people don't think about it that way as much.
Welcome back to Rightside Radio. I'm Amy Beth Shaver with Jarek Wilkins, and we're talking about a couple of things that have happened over the weekend because Alabama politics are crazy. You know, one of the things we mentioned at the top of the conversation that we haven't talked about yet is this whole idea of ballot challenges. And we have the right to do that in the Republican Party. People can file a ballot challenge, and challenges can be accepted or denied. But what I forgot was that Jarek went through this himself. And so I've asked Jarek if he could speak to the whole idea, the issue of the ballot challenge. And then beyond that, what I would love for you to do is to wave your magic wand and tell us the way things could be. Paint a picture for us of what reality could look like if we were to do some things differently. We talked about off air. But first, ballot challenge. What is it? What happened to you? And what are your thoughts?
Yeah, it's important for people to realize that, you know, we want to have Republicans on Republican primaries. Hence the reason why I think it's important for us to close our primaries. But oftentimes we'll have people that may change parties and they say, oh, I want to be a Republican. And there's a process that they have to go through that's clearly laid out in the Alabama GOP bylaws. So we dealt with all of these challenges over the weekend. And I think one of the biggest problems people have with it is they don't understand the process. They don't know the people involved with this decision, but you can challenge someone for any reason. Now, whether it goes to a hearing or not is a different story. And I went through that back when I ran for Congress. People questioned a libertarian donation I made a long time ago, and was trying to say I wasn't a real Republican, even though I'd given tens of thousands of dollars to Republicans. And I sent the chairman a picture of me in 2000 at Victory 2000 with George W. Bush when I was on the Florida Executive Committee. So some of these challenges can be ludicrous, but the one that everyone's talking about, I think, is dealing with the lieutenant governor and Odell. And I think that was a valid challenge, because listen, if you lose a primary election, what you're supposed to do is you get behind the Republican candidate and move on. And that's what I did when I ran for Congress. I took my losses and I said, okay, we fight it out hard in the primary, but let's all come together as Republicans and work to get Republicans in office. But Odell didn't do that. I mean, he ran a write-in campaign. There's a clear sore loser policy in the Alabama GOP bylaws, and I think that was valid. You may not like it, but that's how it is. And we have to have rules, right? Because if we don't have rules, then I mean, we'll be as bad as the Democrats, right?
Yeah, we will. But I like the way that you explained. That's probably the best explanation we've heard, even in conversations, is he chose not to get behind, and he epitomized a sore loser. It wasn't that he just went and tried to run as an independent and, write in. It was the spirit behind it.
Right.
You epitomized what you're not supposed to. And I think that's hard for some of the people who follow him and who like him. They're right. They're free to do whatever they want. But that's exactly right. That's very well said.
Well, and to your next question, unfortunately, I don't have a magic wand, so I can't fix everything.
You don't? Come on.
But if I was the guy in charge making all the decisions, I can
Yes.
tell you what we can do to improve things.
Okay, what?
And it really centers on three things that we really can do to improve how things are going in Montgomery and in Alabama politics. Because, I mean, we hear about all these crazy stories all the time. Well, we shouldn't be surprised when, one, as I already pointed out, we're electing Democrats as Republicans. So one of the first things we should do is close our primaries. And I am hopeful that at some point we'll have enough Republicans say enough is enough. Let's close the primaries and have Republicans vote for Republicans. And hey, if you're a liberal Democrat, then go and vote in the Democratic primary. Put those ideas up. And that's how we have a contest. So the first thing we've got to do is close the primaries. The second thing, and I have shouted from the rooftops about this, I've written a book about it, and that is term limits. Okay. We've made it very clear that power corrupts and absolute power corrupts absolutely. When you have people that are in office for 20 and 30 and 35 years in some cases, that's too long. That's not what a legislative body should be. Look, we have term limits for our governor. We have term limits for all our constitutional offices, and it's time for us to pass term limits on our legislature. So if we close our primaries and then we can enact term limits. And then the third thing is we're concerned about dark money. Okay, well then let's look at some true campaign finance reform. And that's a tough one because I'm a free speech guy, and I think you should be able to spend your money and support who you want to. But what I don't want to see is money coming in from all these other places to influence Alabama votes. And that's what we have a problem with. It's this dark out-of-state money, right? And that's where I have some issues. And I do think that if we did those three things, we would see an entirely different landscape in Montgomery.
I agree. And I think that the unintended consequence, or perhaps one that people haven't thought about because they can be good or bad, is that they would shape up and get things done so quickly versus, well, I just got on that committee or I just became the chair and I need more time. Like if I hear one more official say, but I just need some more time. No, you don't. You just want to hold on to your office while we really just want you to do our work. That's
Right.
all.
And we see that it doesn't take time. Look at this PSC bill,
That's right.
where that came out of nowhere and was through
Like
committee
magic.
and ready to be voted on before anyone even knew it was an issue.
Yeah.
So it doesn't take time. It just takes some people willing to get down and get busy and get to work on it.
I mean, right on time, obviously. Jarek Wilkins has been our guest. Don't be a stranger. Throwing out wisdom. We're going to the 3 o'clock hour break. And when we come back, we'll be with Terry LaPointe, who is running against Mike Rogers. You want to hear her story and how things are going for her as well. So don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
It's kind of like when all else fails, Congress doesn't get things done very quickly. The president gets stymied at every turn. Who do you look to that can be agile and quickly rush in, to either promote something or defend something? And it really is the AGs usually working together, and it's pretty effective.
What do you think is the most significant legal threat facing Alabama in the years to come?
Not to beat a dead horse, but it's just a reclaiming of our state sovereignty. We really haven't made much progress. We've won some cases, so you solve the immediate issue, but large scale, have you heard Congress having a debate lately about how to return power to the states? We are going to keep having the same problems over and over and over again every time there's a Democrat in the White House. Every time. Because they look at Alabama as a deep red state, but it's a poor state that's heavily reliant on federal funding for federal programs, and they're going to jerk us around every time. That is the biggest threat, because every other thing that we work on, every girl sport, every, DEI, all that stuff, COVID vaccine mandates, all of that is pushed through because of a lack of state control. And so that's the biggest threat we have. It's the biggest thing that we need to beat back.
So what does success look like for a conservative attorney general?
Our mission statement is to make the state safer and the country freer. And so if you can walk away from the job, whether that's 4 years, 8 years, or in Steve's case, 10 years, and you can say that you've done that and moved that needle, that's success. I think the one thing I would want to be known for is that you never back down from a fight and that you're extremely vigilant in making sure that these leftist things that come from Washington in some cases or come from the corporate world in some cases, whatever it is, that you do everything in your power as Attorney General to make sure those things don't get a foothold in Alabama. Because I think the AG plays the most important role in keeping Alabama conservative and preserving the values that we had. And if we'd been lazy over the last 8 or 10 years in the way that we did business, Alabama would look really different.
Kind of last question. Serious question. We've got some fun kind of get to know you questions. It's what we end the radio show every day with a would you rather, just a really fun something. But to wrap up, why should the people of Alabama, what qualifies you to be Alabama's next Attorney General?
I think anytime you have an opportunity to vote for someone that has a track record, that's a pretty safe bet because I have a track record. I have a 20-year track record. You can go back and read my op-eds from API on pretty much any conservative topic out there. And then I have a body of work over 10 years. And so when I go out and talk to the people of Alabama and say, vote for me, I'm not promising them something that I want to do or, hope to do. I'm saying vote for me because of what I've done. You can trust me to fight the correct fights. You can trust me to handle myself well, to build the relationships I need to, take on the fights that need to be taken on and to do them to the degree necessary to deliver success for Alabama. And so I just think there's nothing like, hands-on experience. There's nothing like being somewhere for 10 years and seeing the good, the bad, and the ugly, and then, weathering it fairly successfully. So that's what I'm offering. I just think that continuity out of an office has done a good job is a great thing for the people.
All right. So, lightning round.
Let's go.
What's your favorite book?
Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen.
That's so good.
Or really anything by her.
I think I read the Cliff's Notes.
Girl, you miss out.
It's
Really?
a good, yeah.
Can I just watch the movie?
No, I'll bring you a copy. It's
Okay.
It's a prized
Really?
possession. Yeah,
Is it like
it's phenomenal.
thou shalt be?
No.
Okay.
She's very witty and it's a great book.
Would we hang out with her?
Yeah, it'll make you want to go to Bath, England.
It absolutely, yeah.
Okay.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, what's one thing that like we all generally you have to do every day that really annoys you?
Dry my hair.
Okay.
Hate it.
I only wash my hair like once every 4 days. I don't do that every day. I despise taking my makeup off every night.
Do you really?
Yeah, I don't know. This isn't about me, but that's like my thing.
So
it's really annoying.
Oh,
What about you?
that's annoying to me.
Yeah.
Laundry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I hate laundry. What trait do you most value in friends?
Loyalty. Easy.
Easy. What was your nickname growing up?
KK. That's
that's cute.
my maiden name initials were KKG, and a lot of people still call me that.
That's good.
So, what's your dream job outside of politics?
Outside of politics, I would like to be a water ski instructor.
That's so good. Okay.
I'm a great water skier. I can slalom and hold the rope with 1 foot. And
No, you can't.
Yeah. And I've taught other people how to do it. And I think I'd like to do that full time if this doesn't work out.
Okay. I think
I don't know
there's a
how well
future
it
for you.
pays. I don't know how well it pays. And if y'all want me to send you a picture of me skiing, holding the rope with my foot for this podcast, I can.
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah,
great.
we need to see that.
Great.
Like if you had given me a million guesses,
Yeah. I
that
thought
would have been like a million and one.
Yeah.
Possibly.
Oh, hey, full of surprises.
That's hysterical. I wish I could water ski. I just can't.
I can teach you.
I can't stay
Hey,
up.
If I'm not Attorney General and I become a water ski instructor,
You will
I'll
have
give you a
lots
good
of time.
deal.
Okay,
Give you
yeah,
a good deal.
we'll schedule that because Jared's tried for years and he's given up. He's like, I'm dizzy going in circles picking you up on the boat. Thank you all for joining us today. We hope you really enjoyed the podcast.
Please like, share, subscribe. And if there's an option, give us a thumbs up or a 5-star review. We really appreciate it. Amy Beth Shaver with Allison Sinclair, and we are joined by Admiral Brian Christine, who is the Assistant Secretary for Health at HHS. And it is a thrill and it is an honor, sir, to have you here. Thank you.
Oh, it's a privilege to be here. It is so fun to have come back home to Sweet Home, Alabama, to come see my family and to do this, to work with y'all, to do this podcast, to help get the messaging out that we need to, so the American people know the good things that we're doing in Washington, the good things that Secretary Kennedy and President Trump are doing. And so as we start off, I have to give a shout out, obviously, to our president and to Secretary Kennedy, because they are working so hard to make this country healthier than she's ever been.
Welcome back to Rightside Radio. I'm Amy Beth Shaver with JP, and we're going to do this real quick. Thanks, JP. And, you're about to do it. Everybody should have a JP. All right, we're going to do two things while we're waiting on our guest. Two things. One, we're going to read your text because we've talked about a lot of things in 1 hour only. And then number two, if we get to it, are y'all worn out by shutdown after shutdown? Like, I'm exhausted by the government shutdown. I'm exhausted that Democrats, I'm sorry, if Republicans did it, I call them out too. JP and I are going to have a really good conversation about this tomorrow, about talking and the freedom to talk about your party, whether it's a Republican or a Democrat. Doesn't mean you're a bad person. Doesn't mean you're not one or the other. It just means you want to talk about it. But I'm sick to death of these Democrats pulling stunts like, oh, look, we're jetting off to Europe. And then we're going to complain that DHS is going to be shut down. Oh, darn. They do it time after time. And you know what the problem is, Republicans? Here's your criticism. We let them. Or am I wrong?
No, you're right.
Okay. But, before we get really cranked up on that, how about text, sir?
If y'all want to text in, let us know your thoughts on the show. The number is 833-687-4448 or 833-68-RIGHT. Text us and let us know your thoughts. Karen from Rogersville. We started off the show on President's Day talking about our favorite presidents and some of our least favorite presidents. Karen from Rogersville. Donald Trump, thumbs up. Ronald Reagan, thumbs up. George Washington, thumbs up. Joe Biden, thumbs down. Obama, thumbs down. By the way, I'm not going to go long on it, but I did drop that grenade about Ronald Reagan being the most overrated president in my opinion. Well, one of the most overrated presidents in my opinion. Did you agree or disagree with that?
I love Reagan for a good number of reasons, but I would love for you to expand your thought on why you think he is overrated.
Well, so first of all, his mass amnesty was one of the worst decisions a Republican president has ever made. And it's the reason why California will forever be how it is. Also one of his most popular speeches of you can be from anywhere in the world and come to America and be an American. I don't agree with that. I don't think that's necessarily true. I think trickle-down economics was not quite the success they say it was. I'm by no means saying he was a bad president, but do I think he was the greatest conservative president ever, like Republicans like to tout him as? Not necessarily.
Okay.
So
fair. That's fair.
Thomas from Athens says, in 1969, we did not get out of Auburn University for President's Day, but we did get out of classes on Good Friday. That's amazing, he says.
Oh, and now, we just pretend like Good Friday doesn't exist, or we call it some silly holiday name. It's kind of pathetic.
Yeah.
What it's turned into. But my kids, they were either homeschooled or at Christian school, so we always had Good Friday.
Yeah, we had
nice.
We had Good Friday and Easter all the way through often. My Christian high school too.
Yeah. So at least there's that. But you're right. There are certain holidays that have just gone by the wayside. I'll have to ask my friends to make sure I'm remembering correctly. And was it not a different holiday that I'm thinking we got off? But I believe we were off for President's Day. I'll ask my mom. She'll remember. She drove lots and lots of days. Were we not all off for? Yes, we were off. Yeah. Okay. Anywho, what else we got?
Do you
JP?
want to read a couple and then go ahead and go to break, and then on the other side? Okay, we'll do a couple more texts. Jeremy from Aston said, I heard Christians should not be, quote, triggered. They should be cued to pray and put on his shoulders. But then he also puts his favorite presidents: Washington, Jefferson, Trump, Reagan, worst, Obama.
Fair. I like your list, you guys. These are great.
Real quick, Jeff from Indiana, and then we'll go to break. Most favorite president would be Donald Trump, because I'm thinking he saved the nation for a little while anyway. And the worst president, whoever was in control of Joe Biden's auto pen, because Joe Biden was never the president, just the figurehead.
You know what? Yes, Jeff from Indiana. You're right as always. That's good stuff. All right, listen, we're taking a break early because we want to have plenty of time to talk to our next guest. So y'all don't go anywhere. We got a good one on the other side. We'll be right back.
Americans stronger than we've ever been to make America great again. So thanks for the opportunity.
So before we jump into those values issues and talking about making our country healthy again, which is such a relief, could you tell those who may not know you or have heard about you, because you are a legend, a little bit about your background?
Sure.
As we jump in.
Yeah, absolutely. So I was born, my father was in the Army. I was born in what used to be West Germany. Now, if you're old enough like me, you remember that one time there was an East and a West Germany during the Cold War. My father was a tanker. In other words, he was in armor in the Army, tanks. And we had a lot of armor assets deployed along the East-West border during that time. I was born in 1963, really the height of the Cold War. So I was born in West Germany. My father ultimately went Special Forces. In his second tour of Vietnam, he was really severely injured, lost an arm and a leg, got out of the military. We ultimately settled in Augusta, Georgia, had some family there. I went to medical school at Emory in Atlanta, and then I came over to UAB for my residency. And that's how I got to Birmingham. I did my residency in urologic surgery, completed my residency, and then I joined a urology group here in Birmingham. And I practiced with that group for 24, 25 years, really subspecializing in men's health. That was kind of my gig. Then I got the call for the nomination to be the Assistant Secretary for Health from President Trump. Went through the confirmation process. Ultimately was confirmed by the Senate. I was confirmed into this position last November. And here you are. So now I'm in Washington as the Assistant Secretary for Health.
Were you expecting that call? I mean, how does this happen?
Yeah,
you're just like
no, that's a great
Brian
question.
Christine in Birmingham, Alabama, and you get a call that you're the next Rachel Levine. What's her boy name?
Richard.
Richard Levine. Richard Levine.
You're
That's
Richard.
exactly right.
Yeah.
Yes, I am President Trump upgrade from Richard Levine.
We would say
there
so.
We're very grateful for you.
Yeah, exactly. And I really think, listen, I think one of the reasons that President Trump nominated me and that Secretary Kennedy wanted me in the position is because I practiced medicine on the front lines. I was kind of a Main Street doctor. And I think they liked the idea of having someone who really understood medical care and delivery from a Main Street level. I think personally, I think also one of the reasons that President Trump wanted me in this position, because there's really not another visual that shows the difference between the horrible Biden administration and the really righteous and good Trump administration, and the fact that you have me in the same position as Levine. I'm a man who wears men's clothing, and that really says all you need to know about the last administration and this administration. For sure.
I always thought he could have done a better job, like zhuzhing it up a little bit. Like it was like he put on some earrings and a dress, and that was it. Like, but we can work a little harder. But I think America, the juxtaposition is overwhelming from what y'all are doing versus what he was doing.
Well, no, exactly. When you look at Levine, I mean, again, his agenda was no question about it. The transgender and minors agenda was so important for him. All he wanted to do was to tell little boys they could be little girls, little girls they could be little boys, and then recommend castrating surgeries, castrating chemicals, hormones, and do irreversible harm to these kids. So if you go back and look at what he talked about, mostly that was it. I mean, Levine advocated for removing any kind of age restriction on transgender treatment in kids. He advocated for those sex-rejecting surgeries. That's what we call them. People say transgender surgery. No, in this administration, we talk about sex-rejecting surgeries and procedures because that's what they are. And that was his big focus, right? I personally believe he was in that position as a statement. I personally believe he was in that position to be an eyepiece, not because he really cared about the health of the country. So I'm really happy to be in this position to be able to reverse and to right so many of the wrongs that the last administration and Levine, perpetrated on the country.
So in this position, you're able to do a lot of good. Could you talk to us about your roles and responsibilities?
Sure. As the Assistant Secretary for Health, you have kind of a 3-level role. One is to help form healthcare policy, to work across the different divisions of the Department of Health and Human Services, to work with the CDC and NIH and FDA, and work with HHS leadership to help form healthcare policy. So we help form the policy, we help implement that policy. There's also a communication role, which really appeals to me, in that we help to communicate the policy to healthcare establishments, healthcare providers, and to the country at large. Okay, the Surgeon General falls under the Assistant Secretary for Health. So when we have our new Surgeon General in, and I'm happy to say that Dr. Casey Means will be having her hearing before the Senate on the 25th of this month, I believe. She'll be an amazing Surgeon General. We're going to work so well together. But together we'll be advancing the message of the Department of Health and Human Services and President Trump to the American people. So there's that communication aspect to the role. And then also, the Assistant Secretary for Health can serve as a civilian, or they can do.
Welcome back to Rightside Radio. I am Amy Beth Shaver with JP. Happy to be joined by Terry LaPointe, who is running for Congressional District 3, but whose reason for running is tied into a book that she wrote. I met her through Trustful Republican Women. You're from Odenville, but you also are an investigative journalist and wrote an incredible book that when we met, I guess 1.5 years ago, I hadn't read it yet. I didn't understand all that was going on with, would you say medical kidnapping? We'll talk about that. Trust me, you're going to want to talk about this. You're going to want to listen. But before we get to that, let's talk about your run for office and then your why.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it. So yeah, I'm running in against a longtime incumbent, and I'm running for U.S. Congress. And I didn't start with state because the problems that I've seen, the issues that I've seen are nationwide. They impact Alabama and they impact every state. And federal funding is at the root of so much of what I've seen in my investigative journalism. So no matter how much we fix the problems in Alabama, and we do have some good legislators that are actually working on the state level. But until we fix it on a federal level, there's only so much that the states can do. And that's not the Senate, it's the House of Representatives, because that's where the funding bills start. And I've been going to Washington, D.C. since 2019, 3 to 5 times a year, spending a week at a time, talking to legislators, talking to legislative aides, educating them about what's going on, things that their reports aren't telling them, things that I'm seeing on the ground through, old-fashioned investigative journalism, digging for the truth. And anybody who knows me knows that truth is my passion. Truth and justice and doing what is right. And that will not change when I go to D.C.
So tell me about, I don't even know where to start first. So the things that you're seeing on the ground, the things that you've discovered, tie that back to federal funding. What things do we need to happen? What things do we not need to happen when it comes to federal funding?
Okay. So the issue that drew me in was I saw a case of medical kidnapping where Child Protective Services took a child from her family over a medical disagreement. One doctor disagreed with another and the family got caught in the middle. And it horrified me. And I thought, this can't be the way the system works. And I was invited to work for this organization and start investigating these stories. And I saw them all over the country. The further I got, the more I realized there are patterns all across the country. And there's Child Protective Services, the foster care adoption industry. There's billions and billions of federal dollars that go to the states. And there's some funding that they only get this money if they remove the child, don't work with the not working with the family or restoring or trying to keep a family together. And they place them in foster care with strangers, not family members, and they adopt them out to strangers. That's the ASFA bonus, the Adoption and Safe Families Act of 1997. That's Hillary Clinton's baby.
Okay, hold on. I want you to repeat that, please. So you're telling me that children are removed from families.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that foster care's big deal was we want to reunite families.
That's what they say, but only a very small percentage of the funding actually goes towards that. The vast majority of the funding is built on the model of removal and placing even with strangers. So when you've got an agency faced with what are they going to do to keep their doors open and keep their bills paid and keep perpetuating what they're doing, they're going to go with the options that are going to get them more federal dollars. They're going to they call it maximizing federal funding, maximizing the funding. So that means there's a price tag on kids' heads. It sounds insane because like you, I believed Child Protective Services, DHR, is about protecting children from horrible families, abusive families. That's what I thought. And I found out I could not have been further from the truth. Less than 16% nationally of the kids are taken for reasons of any kinds of abuse. It's 19% here in Alabama. Yeah.
19%.
Yeah. So more than 80% are taken for reasons other than abuse. Now, what they consider neglect could be you're neglecting because you're running a meth house and you're not taking care of your child and they're running around in the same dirty diaper for 3 days. That's neglect. But it's also, I've seen this in a report. A social worker came to the door and there were goldfish crackers on the carpet in front of the TV and a toddler. And they called that neglect.
Come on.
No, I wish
they would have taken my children.
One was taken because the child was too short.
What?
She's too short. So is mom, so is dad, so are all the siblings. But yeah. I mean, the things that I have seen, you'd be like, no normal person would do that. And you're right. No normal person would do this. But the federal funding incentivizes this. Only 17% of allegations are even substantiated. Yet more children than that, way more, are adopted out to other people, to strangers, even when allegations are unsubstantiated, just because they've been in the system too long.
So that means that parental rights are terminated without the parent having the ability, especially, it seems to me, in many cases, it would be because they lack the funds to go fight it.
Right.
And so, am I wrong?
No, you're not at all wrong. You're not at all wrong. So this industry really targets those who qualify for food stamps or in the poverty level. Those who are targeted because there's bigger bonuses on those children specifically. So your children in the really affluent areas, there's not as big of financial incentive to take them, but they also have the money to afford a good lawyer. So yeah, it's disturbing. It's disturbing.
And it does sound insane, but I've read your book and I have followed some of your work that you've done. And that is very disturbing. And it goes, no one knows about it. No one.
Unless and until it happens to your family, very, very few people know about it. I'm the outstanding, the person that is, I don't fit the mold because I didn't come into this because it happened to my family. I just heard about it and started investigating. So I came to it objectively. I wasn't looking to slam Child Protective Services. I honestly didn't think that was what I was going to find, but I let the evidence lead me to the conclusions and the things that I've learned. I cannot unsee the horrible abuse of children within the system, the destruction of families, innocent families who are just fighting for their kids, maybe a medically complex child, or fighting to protect them from somebody else that was abusive or didn't want them in a medical research study, wanted a second medical opinion before they cut off a leg or cut out an organ. I've seen all of this. Children are trafficked through the system. Children are being literally trafficked. Even in Alabama, they're being trafficked in and through Child Protective Services. They're in foster homes where they're being trafficked, sometimes with knowledge of the system, full knowledge that it's happening. the federal funding puts a price tag on all of our kids. How do you fight that?
So how do you fight it, and how will you fight it?
I will fight it because I have been talking to legislators, but I was talking to them as a citizen, as a mom, as a journalist, letting them know. And we've talked to lots and lots of people, and we've opened people's eyes. There are people in Washington, D.C. I think that there are probably more people in D.C. now that know about this than there are people just on the streets in Alabama. But as a congresswoman, I will have a stronger voice to be able to get in there with the legislation. And there's several pieces of legislation I already know that I'm going to be introducing. I'm going to be working on things, the medical part of it. I'm going to reintroduce a bill that was introduced in 2014 by Representative Michelle Bachmann, Tea Party. Yes. She introduced a bill when nobody realized it was happening. It's called Justina's Law, based on that Boston story I told you about. Okay?
Yes.
And it says you can't use federal funding, essentially, in layman's terms, to use foster kids as lab rats.
Wait, are you telling me way back when Michelle Bachmann was talking about this?
Yes.
And what's the name of that again, the act?
It was called Justina's Law.
Justina's Law.
It went nowhere back then. But since then, because 2014 was when she introduced it. It was late 2014 I started these investigations. And over several years, I did 1 to 3 stories every single week for several years from all over America, exposing these stories. And so when we started, the term medical kidnap had been used once. I'd only seen it once because I Googled it before I started. Now you Google it, you'll see me come up. You'll see CNN uses the term. It's used in Australia. I've heard it all around the world. People know it's happening because here's a little known fact that children, once they're in the system, once they're a foster child, they can legally be used for medical research and drug testing without their parents' knowledge or consent.
Wait, really?
Yeah, really. Yeah. So you got a child with a complex medical condition, or a child with that happens to be diagnosed with a rare medical condition, and they walk into a hospital, and somebody at that hospital is doing a medical research study on that, and they want that child. Most parents aren't going to say, "Yeah, here, use my child. You can use my child for medical research." Parents aren't going to say that.
Right.
Parents fight that. But if they take the child, they make up allegations, real or not, false allegations, they can take that child, and then they can use them in that medical research.
It makes more sense to me now after I read RFK Jr.'s book about Fauci. That makes so much more sense. Your book sent me on a rabbit trail. And there's so much more that I want to learn about, but reading about Fauci, reading about what he did, reading about how little humans mean nothing to him. So that makes sense. And I want to research about that. Okay. So tell me quickly, because we could talk a long time about this. Where can people find out more about your campaign? But before you tell us that, tell me your other legislative priorities in addition to this.
Okay. So, families first. That is bottom line. Every single thing is going to filter through how does it impact the families? Because we need a warrior in Washington, D.C. who is putting our families first. And I don't see that. And that will be me. So families, medical freedom. You should not lose your job or fear losing your job because you don't want to get something that you have investigated and you just don't feel comfortable putting in your body. Nor should you lose your children because you don't want to put that in your child's body. You should not have DHR knocking on your door because you don't want a shot for your child. Also, government accountability.
Yes, ma'am.
Doge. If we don't have Congress people that are willing to put all these things into law, all these great executive orders by President Trump will fall by the wayside the next time we get somebody who doesn't want those in the White House. So we need congressional leaders who will stick their neck out, who will stand behind President Trump's great executive orders and will codify those in law and will not give up until it is done.
That's great. Terry LaPointe, thank you so much for being with us today. Y'all stick around. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
Which is request commission from the president. So I have been commissioned as the senior admiral at the Public Health Service, specifically the Commission Corps. So you have the U.S. Public Health Service, and then you have something called the Commission Corps, and these are commissioned officers. I'm a 4-star admiral. I lead the Commission Corps, and so one of the other roles I have is as a flag officer and admiral is to lead the Commission Corps of the Public Health Service, and that's about 5,400 doctors, nurses, pharmacists, therapists. Believe it or not, we've got a few veterinarians in there as well, dentists, dermatologists. We are Secretary Kennedy's tip of the spear strike force for public health initiatives. And it's really a privilege to wear this uniform. It's a privilege to receive the salutes that I receive from other members of other uniformed services and my own officers. To wear this uniform is a privilege, but that's a big part of what I do, is to lead the Commission Corps, because we really are the edge of the knife, the tip of the spear for public health in the United States. And I have officers deployed other parts of the world as well, primarily in the U.S. We work at Guantanamo Bay, for instance. We work with ICE agencies. We work with DHS. We supply doctors and nurses to the Indian Health Service, which is a big role. We have officers that work at FDA, work at CDC. They're out in community health centers. So we're all over the place, but that's part of my role as well.
Wow.
That's a lot of people.
It's a lot of people.
I had no idea.
It's a lot of people. And these officers, these are good men and women. These are good men and women who want to serve, who care about this country. And one of the things I have been told by officer after officer is they said, we are so happy that we have a new Assistant Secretary for Health. We're demoralized by our prior Assistant Secretary because we knew he didn't really care about us. He put the uniform on as a political stunt. Brian, you wear the uniform because you care about the country and you want to serve the President and the Secretary.
So going into this role, like, you're just kind of starting. If now, and hopefully we'll do an interview as you're leaving and we can reassess, but give us your top 3, like, these are the things that I definitely want to get done while I'm here. What would those be?
Yeah, and so my agenda is, of course, Secretary Kennedy's agenda and the President's agenda. We all work for the President. He's the Commander-in-Chief. I work with Secretary Kennedy as we both serve the President and serve the people. And so the things that are really important to us at the Department of Health and Human Services, we know that affordability of health care, affordability of drugs, making sure we have good health care delivered to everybody, whether it be in a city or in these rural environments, that is something incredibly important to the President and the Secretary and myself. Also, we have our values issues. In other words, and we can talk about this, right to life issues, respect for the dignity of every man, woman, and child in this country. That's incredibly important to us. Taking care of men, taking care of women, that's important. So affordability, these values issues, and doing everything so different from the last administration and the last Department of Health and Human Services. We absolutely are guided by science. That's something that Secretary Kennedy has said again and again. We are guided by gold standard science, and we use that science to form policy and to do things that are going to make America healthier than she's ever been.
Okay, but Dr. Fauci says he is science. So are we Dr. Fauci science, or are we, like, how do you...
Are we science?
We are science. We are science. Listen, people can think what they want about Dr. Fauci. I prefer not to think about Dr. Fauci. I don't have much regard or respect for that individual. But who I do have regard and respect for are RFK, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., Jay Bhattacharya, Dr. Bhattacharya, who was so incredibly strong during the COVID pandemic. He leads the NIH, the National Institutes of Health. I have respect for Dr. Oz, Mehmet Oz, who heads up CMS, Medicare and Medicaid. He is amazingly brilliant, amazingly committed to this country. We have Marty McCary, who is out at FDA. Marty also cares deeply. We don't have a CDC director right now. The interim director is a man named Jim O'Neill. Jim is also the deputy secretary at HHS, incredibly smart, incredibly strong, committed to life, committed to science. So those are the people I think about. I don't worry about Anthony Fauci. I don't want to think about Anthony Fauci. He did.
Welcome back to Rightside Radio. So we are happy to be able to continue another segment with Terry LaPointe. And I will tell you really quickly before I really want to jump into talking about veterans. What that's like. So let's start with veterans, let's start with their support. Tell me what you bring to the table, what you would like to do and accomplish for our veterans.
Okay, so I come from a long line of veterans. I've gone back and thought about the number of, in my close family, veterans in my family. I was raised by my grandfather, who was a veteran. My dad was a veteran. All kinds of father-in-law, brothers-in-law, uncles, great uncles. So much of my family is military. So I have such a heart for these men and women who have risked everything for us. And it is appalling to me to see the injustices that I see towards them, and that we should be providing for them. We should be taking care of them. Our laws, when they come back, we should not see something I saw when I was investigating my book and doing these stories, that these families are targeted. They're literally targeted by Child Protective Services and family courts over custody of their own children, their grandchildren. Their military service is actually used against them in many of these family courts, which is disgusting to me. It is appalling. These men and women they deserve our highest respect and honor. Veteran suicide, we hear a lot about veteran suicide, but what I've learned is the part that nobody else is talking about. How many of those are tied to battles with family court. I remember being in Washington, D.C. with some parental rights advocates. We were sitting at a restaurant when they got the call in that one of the dads that they had been working with, who had been fighting in family court for his kids, that he had taken his own life.
Oh, goodness.
It's devastating. We've got to address this. And I don't think it would be hard. Have an advocate for them. We've got an advocate to help veterans, get their military benefits. Let's have an advocate for them to navigate family court.
Yeah.
I don't think it would be hard. And then our military, I live in a big military district. Alabama's a big military state. We've got Space Force. We've got so many amazing things with our military. When we go to battle, we need to have the tools to fight and win decisively. We don't need to go to every battle we're invited to, but when we do, we must win decisively. I remember Black Hawk Down, that movie, and seeing, it's like, how did we not give them what they need to fight? How did we let our men and women go in there to certain defeat? We can't do that.
Yeah.
We can't do that.
So what is it like running against an incumbent, and what has the reception been for you?
A lot of people don't want to donate or put their name out there. They're hedging their bets. The big donors, I don't have the big donors because they're all hedging their bets. And I get that. I do. I respect that. There's a lot of people that can't endorse in a primary. I get that. But on the street, when I talk to people, they're like, yes, we need somebody who's going to fight for us. We need somebody who's going to be here for us. We need somebody who's accessible to us. And when I fight for families. I say that. I tell them I fight for families. That's what I've been doing. I'm not a politician. And they're like, well, you got my vote. You got my vote. I hear that all the time. So it's great fun in many ways. I love connecting with people. And then it's also heartbreaking hearing the stories of things that are not being addressed and they're being ignored. So,
are there any other parts of your campaign that you would love for our audience to know about?
Conservative values matter. A vote for me when I'm in office, if you're pro-life and you want to call me about something, you're not even going to need to ask, do I need to call her and ask her to vote pro-life? You're going to just know, right. I'm going to vote pro-life. I'm going to vote constitutionally. Yes, call. Absolutely do that. But know that I'm going to be Alabama's most conservative voice. I listen to people, and I listen to people on all sides. I do. And I want to hear, because we learn when we shut out and don't listen to a segment of society, we miss important points that we need to hear. but there's a line of conservatism, constitutionality. I will stand strong. And I don't care if I'm the only one standing strong. You know, if I've got to be, I tell people all the time, if you need somebody to stick their neck out and be the first one to stand firm and not budge or lead in an area, okay, I've done it before. I did it with my book. I did it with the articles. I've done it before. I've done it afraid. You know, they told me that if I published this book, that they would come after me, that they would try to take me out. I'm still here. I'm still standing, and I did it afraid. And that has really propelled me. You know what? I'm going to do the right thing. Even if I have to do it afraid, even if I have to do it alone. But I don't believe we have to do it alone. I think that there are more out there that agree with us, that are conservative. They're just wanting somebody to pick up that banner and say, come on, let's go.
Yep.
Let's do the right thing. I think there are so many patriotic Americans. I've seen them even in the muck and the mire of Washington, D.C. I see people that want somebody to do the right thing. They're hungry. People are hungry for somebody to step up and do the right thing. And they see, and I like Rightside Broadcasting, what media, what y'all do. They're hungry to hear the truth. People want to hear the truth. They want to hear people that are going to fight and stand up for what is right, no matter what. And I'm that person.
So do this for us. Tell us, are your articles located in one spot? Is it all on your website? How can people find out more about you and the work that you've done?
Okay. Well, they're not all in one spot.
Okay. That's okay.
And actually with Medical Kidnap, the author's names, my name's not on a lot of the articles that I wrote. I know which articles I wrote. There's hundreds of them.
No, it's fine.
So medicalkidnap.com.
Okay.
There's a lot of them. My former editor's kind of lost his mind.
It's okay.
Bless his
You know,
heart.
they do sometimes.
But the stuff between 2014 and 2018, that stuff is good.
Okay.
Then realnewsspark.com. There's a little bit there. Google my name. Go on YouTube, any of the social medias.
Okay.
And I mean, I've done so many podcasts. I've talked about this many, many times on different shows, different platforms. And you can contact me. I'm most active on Facebook.
Okay.
There's my Facebook, Terry LaPointe for Congress.
Okay.
And then my personal, you can follow me there because I post a lot of the stuff that I find out, and you can go way back.
Okay.
And you can see that it's consistent. Ask me questions. Contact me. I am on X. It's at LaPointe Congress.
At LaPointe Congress. And it's spelled like you think, LaPoint.
Mm-hmm.
And then Terry LaPointe, your Facebook page, Terry LaPointe for Congress.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah,
Got
spelled
it.
out. And then the website, of course, terrylapointe4congress.com.
Okay, great. Thanks so much for visiting with us today. If you want to find out more, you can do it there. We'll be right back.
This country. Yeah. I think about President Trump and our team now at HHS because we're doing amazing things.
You clearly are. So could we jump in then to those values issues that you've mentioned? Top of the list, right to life.
Yes.
And underneath that would be people's concern about mifepristone.
Sure.
Could you talk to us about that a little bit?
Yeah, I think, I'm 62 years old, turned 62 in December. This is the most pro-life administration that I've ever seen in my 6 decades plus of life. There's no question about it. The most pro-life administration that I've ever seen. I think the administration that is friendliest to religion and faith that I've ever seen. And President Trump has demonstrated that again and again. We stand for life. We stand for the fact that we know that life begins at conception. We respect life until life's natural end. We respect the dignity of the person. We want to make sure that we stand with individuals who believe those same things, and we do. The recent March for Life, you saw that Vice President Vance address the country. The next day, there was a breakfast that was basically for all of the youth, the young men and women who'd come into this country come into the city from across the country. There was a breakfast that morning. Jim O'Neill, the deputy secretary, and myself, we addressed those students, and there were over 2,000 people there. And we talked about the fact, what we're doing for life, the fact that we know little boys are little boys and little girls are little girls. The fact that we know life begins at conception. The fact that we are doing things like, for instance, through my office, the Office of the Assistant Secretary for Health, we administer the Title X funds. So let me tell you, so just recently, because of our oversight, directed by Secretary Kennedy, our oversight over Title X funds, $2.3 million of grants that had been given before us had to be returned by Planned Parenthood. $2.3 million that will no longer go to killing children. $2.3 million that will no longer go to lying to women. Because of our oversight, they gave that money back, which is a huge victory. Absolutely. We make sure that we're enforcing the Hyde Amendment. President Trump, Secretary Kennedy, and myself, we are strong for this. No federal dollars are going to go toward abortion or procuring abortion services. We are strong with the Hyde Amendment, and we are making sure the Hyde Amendment is being enforced, unlike the last administration. Yes. We have made sure that monies that when you have youths, children or youths, young girls who are taken in custody coming across the border or something, that federal dollars cannot go to providing abortion services, because that was going on in the last administration. Just totally disregarding the Hyde Amendment. We stand strong. That's no longer happening. So for those right to life issues, we've been incredibly strong about that, and we're very vocal about that. Again, one of the things that impresses me most about Robert F. Kennedy Jr., and he's always been this way, he really realizes that God has given an inherent dignity to every man, woman, and child, and we respect that dignity.
As an adopted person, and I know as an adoptive mother, we are so thankful for those policies. And as women who've lived through the nonsense, that the lies that have been heaped upon us, that you have to kill your child to have a life.
That's right.
We're very grateful for your stand in that regard.
Again, all of this is a privilege, but we have to do it for the country. We have to and we have to remember too that all of the wins that we have in this administration and this Department of Health and Human Services, it only takes one election cycle for things to reverse. And so we can talk about this more later, but it's incredibly important for us as conservatives, for us as people of faith, to be motivated to vote in November, to get out, support those candidates who stand with President Trump and his agenda. It's going to be more important than it's ever been. I know every election it's like, this is the most important. So I'm not going to use that hyperbole, but this is an incredibly important election in November. So I want all of the people, all of the men and women who watch this podcast, who listen to this podcast, and there are so many, I want them all to know, tell your friends, tell your families, we've got to be out there supporting candidates in congressional districts and Senate races that support the president in November.
You posted recently about gender affirming care, gender dysphoria, and kind of your work, and you just mentioned, right to life. That I would agree, that is a life issue. Were you surprised when the American Medical Association came out recently and said that gender affirming care, genital mutilation, all that should be put off till adulthood? And do you think that we're maybe turning a corner on all this?
I think that is I'm so glad you asked that question, because yes, so the American Medical Association is certainly backing away from its prior stance. It was the Academy of Plastic Surgeons, I think that's the right name. The Academy of Plastic Surgeons that said, and this is landmark, they said just this past week, that we recommend that we don't do those mutilating surgeries, what we call the sex-rejecting surgeries, on anybody under the age of 19. That is huge. That is huge. And I think we are turning this corner. We can never take our foot off the accelerator, because I like to say...
Welcome back to Rightside Radio. It's been quite a day today, hadn't it, JP?
Taz.
Quite a day. We've talked about presidents. We've talked about the Alabama Republican Party, and we have talked about Terry LaPointe's run for Congress. And if you would like to read her book, it's called Voices That Will Not Be Silenced. I actually found it on Amazon. It is an interesting read, well documented. She is an investigative journalist. You can look on medicalkidnap.com. I recognize that this sounds unbelievable, but compare what we're learning with Epstein, and it becomes less unbelievable. If you've read RFK Jr.'s book about Fauci, it becomes less and less unbelievable. You just only have so much time in your life to learn about different subjects and different things that are going on. I'm new to this, but it's interesting. If you are interested, check it out. Voices That Will Not Be Silenced on Amazon. Okay, JP, do we have text before we go into the 4:00 hour and finish our montage? I cannot wait to talk about Marco Rubio's talk. It was phenomenal. I wanted to cheer in my kitchen, but then that would be weird and I would make it awkward. You know?
That's not weird.
I mean, it was like speechless.
It was quite the speech for many reasons. I look forward to talking about it as well.
Yeah.
We do have some more text.
Okay.
Jeremy from Madison, talking about our interview with Terry LaPointe, says, abolish DHR. Parents have the right to confront their accusers. DHR totally disregard that they're Satan.
I had a feeling that our listeners would have a thing or two to say about this.
Charles I says the SAMHA, the SAMHA program. What is that program?
We're going to look it up.
Is being used by the head of Alabama Mental Health, Kim Boswell, in a similar way as Terry spoke of DHR using federal money.
Okay, we're going to look that up. Charles, I'm looking it up, unless you want to text us back. SMHA.
Say SAMHA.
Oh, SAMHA. As soon as you tell me what this is, I'll go, oh, yeah, I've heard of that before. There's so much going on. There are so many ways we can be involved as citizens. And if this one really has you fired up, I recommend researching. If you've got stories to tell because you've been through it, tell your story. But I think her idea that so much federal funding comes through, and it's basically once they get that lump sum of money and they do with it what they choose, then like, what are we going to do about it? But if we're aware of it from the beginning and can lobby our officials, then we could perhaps make inroads, because they are unaccountable and they do what they want. And I'm sure in some cases they're okay, but my opinion, since reading Voices That Will Not Be Silenced, my opinion has been persuaded that I could be very wrong. So, and I have family stories that, or maybe extended family or people that we know well that have been very close to those situations. And so I feel it. I feel the depth and breadth of this problem.
Marshall from Dubai says, you spoke about sending our men and women into harm's way with the best equipment possible. My dad told me, quote, if you ever get to the point in your military career that you're going to send assets into harm's way, make sure they have what they need to succeed. If all you have is a pile of rocks, you owe that asset every rock in that pile.
That's good.
Thanks,
Marshall from Dubai.
Yeah. Who claims to be a sunscreen salesman, but I don't think that's true. I think it's code for something.
I think it is too. I know he's not ever going to tell us, but we wish he would. But thank you for texting.
Brad from Crimestone says, Abs, I do like what you said about Washington. Quote, he understood the assignment. Very well put. The list of best and worst presidents typically evaluate them by the wrong criteria. May I recommend a book? And then he recommends 9 presidents who screwed up America and 4 who tried to save her.
Ooh.
Says he evaluates the presidents on one thing. How well did they abide by their oath to uphold the Constitution?
9 presidents who screwed up America.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just going to put that keyword in. I can't wait.
And 4 who tried to save her.
Okay. Sorry, you guys. My pen today is loud. Okay. It's like a marker. I took it from my husband. It does sound like it's a sprinkler. It's not. It's the same thing as writing with a pencil in church, and everybody's like, oh, is that a kid? No, that's me. Because we're out of pens at my house. I can't wait. Thank you for the recommendation, Brad. You know, I love to read books. So thank you. I'll get it. What else we got? Oh, because I have money left on my gift card from my husband for Christmas. Thrift books. Y'all don't sponsor us, but you should.
I'm more of a, I love to listen.
Okay. So you're an audiobook guy?
Yeah. I don't know.
Okay.
I mean, I will read physically if I really like the topic, but I much prefer to listen because I can put it on and I can work out or I can do something and it's in the background. And, I find that much better than actually reading it. But I love like podcasts. I will listen to podcasts nonstop. I don't know. I feel like a Zoomer when I say that. How I wish I could sit down and physically read a book, but it's harder. I like to listen to it.
Have you listened to Andre Agassi's story on Audible?
No.
Do you know who Andre Agassi is?
I actually don't.
is an amazing tennis player.
Huh.
Okay. Just keyword in, everybody, Andre Agassi on Audible. Chris and I listened to that a couple years ago. Unbelievable autobiography. Unbelievable. I think it's even just called My Story. Like, it's a simple title. Incredible. And what he's doing now. He had a secret little mixture. It was not drug fueled before he would play, but his ability to return serve. His serves were aces. Great. Was it also his back end? Anyway, he had crazy hair in the 80s, like it was a mullet with sass. It was tall and then crazy. Talks about his coaches. Great to listen to. That was a great book. You would enjoy it, I believe. I could be wrong, but I'm a podcast girl. Yeah. I like to hold books. I either read first thing in the morning or at night. And then during the day, I listen to so many podcasts, I have to just make myself turn them off because it's fun to be able to access information, learn from it. Next thing, whatever. How many podcasts do you keep on your rotation? Do you have like go-to top 5?
Oh, yeah. So my go-to favorite podcast, this person may be controversial for his takes recently, but Daryl Cooper's podcast, the Martyr Made podcast. Oh my goodness.
Who's Daryl Cooper?
Daryl Cooper is a historian. He really got controversial when he went on Tucker and made the statement about how he thought Winston Churchill was the chief villain of World War II. But regardless of what you think of him, he spends hours and hours and hours of research. I listened last year. It was a 9-hour total podcast. I think it was 6 or 7 episodes, literally from the beginning of Zionism up until 1948, Israel became a nation, and the entire story of it, and every minute detail you could think of. But he portrays it like a story. There's music, there's personal stories in it. It is it's a work of art, truly. And he's doing one right now in World War II. He put up his first episode a couple of weeks ago, or it was actually like a couple months ago, and starting with Adolf Hitler in World War I. And how Adolf Hitler became who he was. It is Daryl Cooper, Martyr Made podcast is one of my favorites. He's also done one on the what was that cult? The Jonestown cult.
Oh man, I was obsessed with that.
He did one on that
in college. Oh my word.
Yeah.
There's some good documentaries out about that too.
But just sitting down, putting on headphones, and somebody just let me tell you a story, and I love that sort of podcast. He's probably my number one go-to, honestly.
Okay. Do you have a number 2?
I listen to Tucker a good bit still.
Okay.
I would have been Bongino before this whole ordeal, which
really, I respect and admire Bongino. I truly do. It's just the new Bongino. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
But
then the go-to is also Joe Rogan. Can't go wrong with
it. You can't go wrong with Joe Rogan. Okay. Cool.
What about you? We got 30 seconds for a break.
Okay, 30 seconds. I love just thinking Daryl Harrison, Virgil Walker, big time. I probably don't. I listen to Ligonier Ministry, so R.C. Sproul, who's long departed, and then our pastor has one called "Got a Minute." Which is
I
really
need to check
good.
that out.
It's really good. And then there are others like Against All Odds that are storytelling that people survive ordeals. They're incredible. They talk about the Thai cave rescue. That was the soccer team that was rescued. I love Against All Odds. And then I'm a girl. I'm going to tell you Dateline. I love a good mystery. But when they were on TV only and my husband was in residency, I was not allowed to watch it because I was always convinced that they were going to come and kill me. He's like, that's not realistic. Stop watching Dateline. I still love them. I can't help it. What am I going to say? All right, you guys. On the other side, Marco Rubio on fire. We'll be right back. Y'all have heard us talk about Inspire Advisors, how Paul Breyer and his team at Inspire Advisors will help you grow your investment portfolio while also screening out companies that don't stand for conservative Christian principles.
Paul and his team are experts on what they call biblically responsible investing. And for a limited time, they're hosting a free class that you can register for.
Check out the class and register for free at moneypatternwealth.com. It's godly, it's conservative, and it's financial freedom.
Again, go to Inspire Advisors at moneypatternwealth.com. Check them out and tell them you heard about them at Rightside Radio.
Gender theory is like a vampire. It'll come back. You may think you've killed it, but it'll come back in the next hostile administration. So we always have to keep our foot on the accelerator for this, and we are, and I am, and President Trump certainly is. But yeah, I hope that we've turned a corner. I really do. This really started with, again, science. So we released at HHS, we released something called the Gender Dysphoria Report, and that was back in the fall. We released this report that basically looked at all the science, and we said, no, the wrong way to treat these children is to perform castrating surgeries. The wrong way to treat these children is to use sex-rejecting chemicals and hormones. The right way to treat these children is with compassionate, competent mental health care. Now, personally, as a person of faith, I personally believe that if the child's parents want this, I think pastoral care is incredibly important to support these kids, right? But we initiated that report. The report was released, and then we did something even more. We had what was called the peer review of that report. So we invited scientists, not all of whom were aligned with us, to say, review this report. Tell us what you think. Put your politics aside, go by the science. And they had to say, you're right. The science backs up exactly what you're saying about this. So I think things like we're seeing with the plastic surgeons, things like hopefully we're going to be seeing more with the AMA, really the shot across the bow was the Gender Dysphoria Report. Because, again, Secretary Kennedy has always said, we use gold standard science to guide our decisions. That's gold standard science. Those kind of things, sex-rejecting surgeries, horrible chemicals and mutilations, that's not the way to treat these kids. I am not going to take my foot off the accelerator on this because, like I said, it is a vampire. If we don't stake it through the heart and if we don't kill this whole gender theory, it's going to come back in the next hostile administration. No question about it. So we're doing great things with that. And that, as far as values, very important to the president, very important to the vice president, very important to Secretary Kennedy and myself.
Can I ask a follow-up question real quick?
Yeah.
Don't forget what you were about to say. Okay. So RFK's ideas, like inverting the food pyramid, are seen as kind of controversial. Some of his suggestions on treatments and things like that. To me, there's more science behind what he's saying than what we've been told for all these years. Yeah. I think now, especially after COVID, we're seeing, wait a second, have we been lied to? You're all changing the vaccine schedule for childhood vaccines is huge. But how do you balance that? And do you see much pushback? Because you're saying gold standard science, but a lot of it, people are like, this is new to them.
Well, science is dynamic. Right. It's not static. Science changes over time. I'm a physician. I'm a surgeon. I'm a scientist. The way I do things, and I've closed my practice to be in this job, but the way I did things, for instance, in 2025 when I was still practicing, were very different than I was trained 20 years earlier or even 10 years earlier because science is dynamic and changes. And that's what Secretary Kennedy has said. What he has said is we always follow the science, but we have to be nimble enough and we have to be honest enough to say that if the science leads us in a different direction than it has in the past, that we are brave enough and we care enough about this country to make those changes. And that's exactly what you're seeing. You mentioned about the vaccines. I mean, let me be very clear about this. And I'm glad you brought this up, Allison, because this is very important. Secretary Kennedy has not taken a vaccine away from anyone. Despite what the lying left will tell you, he has not taken a vaccine away from anyone. Now, what he has said is that we want people to decide what's right for themselves. Yes. We want parents to decide what's right for their kids. We want to put knowledge in their hands so they can make the best decision for them. He has not taken a vaccine away from anyone or anybody. Vaccines are still available. We did look at the recommendations, what the vaccine, the child vaccine schedule should be. And it wasn't just this was willy-nilly. No, what happened is the president said, we need to look at this. And so what did we do? We went and we compared the vaccine schedule for children for other countries, other peer countries, countries like ourselves, advanced countries, and said, what are they doing? And we looked and found out that what we were doing was not in line, and they had good science backing them up. So all we did was we went from 17 to 10 vaccinations recommended, but we're not preventing anybody from getting a vaccine. What we've simply done is look at the science and say, this is what the science suggests. So Robert F. Kennedy has not pulled vaccines from anybody. He's not preventing anybody from getting a vaccine. He's simply saying, Mom and Dad, you make the decision for your kids. What we're not going to have in this administration is a government forcing and mandating vaccines into our bodies or medicines down our throat, or advocating for cutting our children's body parts off for some left radical, really sick ideology.
I mean, we talk about all the time the regret we have. Like, in
Awful.
what world is it a good idea to take your 6-week-old and get jabbed with 4 different chemicals in one? I mean, but we trusted our doctors, and I think our doctors were just doing what they were told in medical school based on science. So very grateful for that, because I feel like Abs and I are always like, we need to go apologize to our kids.
We really
should
do.
know better.
Well, I think it's, again, we have to be led by science, like I said, but we have to empower patients. I mean, as a surgeon, I lived and died by informed consent. I had patients who I said, maybe I diagnosed a prostate cancer, and I said, here's your treatment option.
Welcome back to Rightside Radio. I'm Amy Beth Shaver with JP. Finally to the 4:00 hour, which I say finally, but it feels like it's been 5 minutes. We're so glad to have you with us today. Your texts are on fire as always. Looking ahead to the rest of the week, tomorrow we have a special guest. JP, do you want to tell him? Do you want to tell him?
Mi padre.
Su padre.
That
He's going to be on the show.
Yeah, he is. I think the last time he was on was parental therapy with Dale, so it may be a bit of a change of pace for him, but yeah.
It's going to be, how to talk to people. We're in an age where even discussing Republican Party politics, if you're just a hair's breadth difference from somebody, but in the same party, you're a traitor. So how do we talk to people who we're with, and how do we talk to people who cut us off or would like to? How do we do that? I was looking in the Proverbs today, and honeyed speech is persuasive. But how can we be like honey when behind it we feel like the bee and we want to be angry? And there are things to be angry about. But how do we talk? How do we communicate? JP also wrote an article about that. We're going to talk about that article. And maybe story times with Abs, or it could be BTS of Marxism, because Chris and I are reading a book called Marx and Satan. It's a short book. But when I describe to you, and many of you already know, but this was alarming to me, the behind the scenes of Karl Marx's life, what he actually believed, to think that there is a system that was set up and emulated on this man, it is extraordinary. So we're going to talk about that tomorrow. But before we do any of that, it's finally time to circle back, Saki, to our montage and talk about Marco Rubio's speech. Did y'all listen to the speech? And if so, friends, what did you think? JP?
Well, real quick, do you want to play a minute and a half real quick?
Could we?
If anybody hasn't heard the speech, it's about a minute and a half of Marco Rubio's speech at the Munich conference over in Germany.
This is why we do not want our allies to be weak, because that makes us weaker. We want allies who can defend themselves so that no adversary will ever be tempted to test our collective strength. This is why we do not want our allies to be shackled by guilt and shame. We want allies who are proud of their culture and of their heritage, who understand that we are heirs to the same great and noble civilization, and who together with us are willing and able to defend it. And this is why we do not want allies to rationalize the broken status quo rather than reckon with what is necessary to fix it. For we in America have no interest in being polite and orderly caretakers of the West's managed decline. We do not seek to separate, but to revitalize an old friendship and renew the greatest civilization in human history. What we want is a reinvigorated alliance that recognizes that what has ailed our societies is not just a set of bad policies, but a malaise of hopelessness and complacency. An alliance is what the alliance that we want is one that is not paralyzed into inaction by fear. Fear of climate change, fear of war, fear of technology. Instead, we want an alliance that boldly races into the future. And the only fear we have is the fear of the shame of not leaving our nations prouder, stronger, and wealthier for our children. An alliance ready to defend our people, to safeguard our interests, and to preserve the freedom of action that allows us to shape our own destiny. Not one that exists to operate a global welfare state and atone for the purported sins of past generations.
I mean, incredible. He gave those leaders permission, and he talked about it in the speech if you haven't heard it. He basically gave them permission to be unashamedly for their country and for their people. But what he said at the end, a couple of times there were some applause lines. He said he wanted to recover sane foreign policy. He wanted to restore our place, their place in the world. And then he wanted to rebuke civilizational erasure, which is exactly what we're doing when it comes to immigration. And he asked a couple of things, and I loved how he did it because he didn't make it an us versus them. He made it we.
Yeah.
We are stronger together. We are better this way. We are connected. We owe our civilization. It began here. They loved that. But then what he said was interesting. He said, what are we defending? He said, militaries, armies don't fight for abstractions, which I thought was a great point. And he said, we're proud of our culture and of our heritage. You are too. We have to be willing and able to defend it. Great and noble civilizations. But the killer line was that we're unwilling to be polite and orderly caretakers of the West's managed decline. I'm like, all right, sign me up for the Marco Rubio for president committee, even though I also love JD Vance. But that's what my takeaway was. He gave permission for them to be proud of who they were, for their country, and to fight for it, even as the entire globe, it seems, but really Europe and America just punching back against unfettered immigration and what that's done to us and what that's done to Europe. And you know it's effective when suddenly Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama are now discussing their slightly different stance. Basically, I'd call it a throwback stance because we have plenty of clips, and one we may play, of Obama discussing immigration. That's how you know it was effective. Thoughts?
Yeah, I agree completely. It's I like this trend of, in this administration, American leaders going over to Europe and saying, get your crap together. Okay. That's essentially what's been happening. Trump did it, when he went over, I can't remember how long it was ago, or maybe this was at the UN, where he talked about how, essentially the same thing of Europe, and they need to, we can't just be doing Europe's bidding and Europe's work for them. JD Vance has been over in Germany and said the same thing, because the bottom line is with Europe, and mainly France, England, Italy, Germany may be the worst of them all, with the decline of any sort of pride about their nation. They are just being flooded with immigrants. Their identity is being erased. And the reason they can do that without just imploding completely yet is because of the United States, because the United States is in such a partnership with them where we're their safety net. We can defend them from Russia. We can, do all of their work for them, essentially. It's not good for us. That's not a healthy relationship. That's a leech relationship and on our end, because we're going to continue to provoke Russia and go and continue to march up to Russia's door on behalf of Europe. Meanwhile, they continue to implode and they're not bringing anything to the table. That's not a healthy relationship, because we've got our own problems in our own hemisphere with China and Russia coming into our own backyard. And we've been so focused on helping Europe and being in their backyard, doing their work for them, that we've allowed our own hemisphere to become infiltrated. No more. And like what we did in Venezuela, which is a great sign moving forward, it's not we need to abandon Europe. We need them to just pick up the slack a little bit, stop being so, out of it, because we've got to pull back some resources in our own hemisphere. Okay. But it's like you said, a stronger Europe and is a stronger United States, because where they can do some of their heavy lifting, we can do more on our end to keep us healthy and keep our own hemisphere strong. It's not good if we overexpend our resources to help them because they're so weak, because the United States then gets weaker. So I think it's an awesome message. I don't know if it was received.
They loved it.
Yeah, part of me would think like Keir Starmer and those wouldn't like it, but also I would think there's a lot of people in Europe that are like, thank you for finally saying this, to our faces. So we'll see. And in terms of Rubio 2028, it's so weird for me because I don't know how I feel about Rubio as a whole. He is an amazing Secretary of State. But it is going to be interesting. 2028. Rubio has already said if Vance is running, he's not going to run. I'd like to see if he keeps that mindset, because he's starting to position himself as one of the most brilliant and effective members of this administration.
100% agree. 100%. I wonder if they would run together. I don't know. But his masterclass in diplomacy, his knowledge of history, and his ability to win an audience over whom I'm sure weren't sure when he started how that was going to go. But he masterfully put us all on the same page. If we were able to do that same thing within our own party like he did, and articulate it, is very simple. I mean, psychologically speaking, when we lay things out very simply, we are more believable. And that's exactly what he did. But I just can't get over what you said, my sentiments exactly. Inside they're thinking, oh, I don't have to be embarrassed to be a German and want to be for my country. I don't have to be embarrassed to be British and want to be for my country, or Italian or Swiss or whatever. We don't have to be embarrassed. And I think if we phrase it positively like that, team building like that, it's unstoppable, which makes the global elites, the Davos crowd, furious.
Right. Because what they've done in Europe, they want to do to America.
Yes,
we
they
have
do.
a common enemy in that regard, but
That's
we're starting
exactly
to turn the ship, and our European brothers have got to do the same, because when a Western front is not strong, in other words, America's strong, but Europe is not, China and Russia, they get stronger from that, So we need a strong Europe is a strong America, and we don't have to fight Russia as much on behalf of Europe, because Europe can handle its own battles. And meanwhile, we're going to get China out of Panama, out of Venezuela, out of all, so I think it's a great position. And I love it. Can we just send Rubio or Vance over to Europe once a week and just like smack Europe in the face and say, let's go?
Yes.
Hey, what are you doing?
I'm for that. I love that idea, JP. And if they start doing it, it's because you dreamed it up.
Rubio, if you're listening to this for whatever reason, or President Trump for that matter, just send somebody over there every week. Okay. Give them a talking to.
Please, until they get their lives back, because right now it's a dumpster fire.
Yeah. And it breaks my heart.
It's tragic, because think about how recently we were all able to be there in such a beautiful part of the world. And it's not that anymore. So please send Rubio over. Please send Vance, but make sure they come back. Please.
I would like for like last year when we were talking about our Europe trip and we were like, do we want to go to London? And I was like, I'd prefer not to get stabbed and robbed on my vacation. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Hard pass.
It's funny, but not funny, because that's how it is.
Okay. So you guys, there's more to come. So stick around. We'll see you in a minute.
Think is best. Here's the options. What's right for you? And if they made a decision that I disagreed with, I didn't abandon them. I said, I respect you. We respect people's right, or we respect their intellect to make a decision for themselves. It's all about informed consent. What you will never see this administration, and what you will never see me or Secretary Kennedy or Dr. Oz or Dr. Bhattacharya, you'll never see us try to force our personal agenda on people. We'll always be guided by science, and we'll always give them the ability to make the decisions for their own health.
And you would think post-COVID, people would be thrilled for that. And yet there still seems to be pushback on that idea. There's pushback on the COVID vaccine still. I have young grandchildren. It's still pushed on them. Can you speak to that at all? Because it's unbelievable after all we've learned, after the evidence that's presented itself, that there would be any pushback at all, that we'd say, no, we really do want to make the decision for ourselves. We want to make the decision for our children. We're not anti-science. We're not vaccine deniers.
That's exactly right.
That's not who we are.
We aren't. I've heard Secretary Kennedy say in his confirmation hearing, just like I said in my confirmation hearing, listen, we know vaccines can save lives. We also know not every vaccine is the same. We also know not every vaccine is right for every individual. So you would think people would be happy to have us be able and empower folks to make their own decisions. But again, I think there are those on the left, there are those who hate the president, they hate the secretary, they really hate the ability of people to think for themselves.
Yes.
Right? So they don't support our agenda, which our agenda is health and freedom.
And we're so glad. So I'll save it.
No, if you're on the track, go. Stay
Well,
on the
I
track.
wanted to talk food pyramid.
Oh, that's
Oh, good.
actually where I was going to go.
Okay, perfect. Same brain as always.
Great. I'm glad, because this is important. The new dietary guidelines are absolutely incredible. They are amazing. And so what law requires is that at least every 5 years, new guidelines come out. And so when you look at the guidelines from the past, particularly the recommendations that were made by the prior administration, it was just pushing highly processed, highly sugary, fake food on the American people. Why do we have an obesity epidemic in this country among kids, among adults? At least part because of the junk food that are pushed down our throat. Now, our dietary guidelines do, just like you said, Allison, we've taken the pyramid and we've flipped it. What we are doing now is we are emphasizing protein. We're emphasizing whole foods, nutrient-dense foods. We're emphasizing protein gotten through meats and fish, eggs. We're emphasizing whole-fat dairy because that's really healthy. We're telling people, don't be afraid of saturated fat in your diet, right? Don't be afraid. Fat is not about, our body needs fat.
Yep.
Our nervous system needs fat. We have to have fat. Now, we aren't saying go out and overindulge in fat, but what we're saying is don't be afraid of it. We're saying get your protein, get your nutrients, get your carbohydrates from whole, nutrient-dense food, and move away from sugary, fake, processed food. That's all we've said. And I'm telling you, this is going to make a difference in the health of this country, and it makes a difference in affordability. And I really want to touch on that as we talk more about it.
Yeah. Quick question before we do jump into affordability, because I think that's on everybody's mind. What took so long? Why wasn't the food pyramid inverted before now?
That is a great question. Tell you, there are a lot of forces out there. There's a lot of big pharma. There's a lot of big agriculture. A lot of individuals with a lot of money who really love to see sugary processed foods. Think about that. If you can get kids and adults in this country eating, and I don't want to pick on any particular product, but eating a sugary cereal for breakfast every morning, that's a heck of a lot of money that you make in your pocket as that industry. So there's a reason to push those foods. I think that's part of it. But one thing I will say about Secretary Kennedy is I've described him as being a John the Baptist for our times, because he has been a voice crying out in the wilderness, we're poisoning our kids. We're over-medicalizing people. We are destroying this country from within by bad health decisions. He's been a voice crying out, and so flipping the pyramid, making this, is just an example of the kind of radical change that we see with this administration and Secretary Kennedy, all for the good.
I just have to say that I'm really, about a year and a half ago, I cut out all seed oils. I actually upped my salt intake. I add in like organic avocado oil or olive oil. Like I actually add oil to things. I mean, and it flies in the face of everything. I mean, I promise Lucky Charms were the base of the food pyramid when I was growing up.
No, I understand exactly what you're saying because I do too. Like, yesterday for breakfast before I flew down, made myself some eggs for breakfast, and I poured some olive oil on them, a little bit of salt and pepper.
Some ghee.
Yeah, we're not.
So
You
good.
don't be afraid of those things.
Yeah.
Right.
This is our guidelines teach us to eat the way our bodies have always been meant to eat.
Right.
Not Lucky Charms or whatever the sugary garbage food you want, right? No, not that.
Guthrie.
Sorry, welcome back. Sorry.
It's
Hey,
okay.
you guys. It's Amy Beth with JP. I have notes and I get distracted by my notes in my notebook and my dollar notebook from Target. It's the only thing. Actually, it's $1.19. It's too much. Okay, it's the old-fashioned notebooks that we used to get for school. I love them. All right, JP. May we have a moment, please?
Yeah.
Everybody in the universe is tired of the Savannah Guthrie story. But our question is, and we want to know what you think. Do you find all this super weird? Like, if my mother-in-law went missing, would the government send out a helicopter to ping her pacemaker? Because that was the last bit of news I saw. This is weird.
It is weird. Also, Savannah Guthrie, her videos she's putting up to me are really bizarre. Particularly the last one. It's pretty much her like sitting crisscross in her yard or something, and when she talks like this and really dramatic and long pauses, and I get it. Okay, I'm not trying. Like, I understand you just lost your mother, but just the performative videos are bizarre. But then she goes to the capturer who has my mother. I just want you to know it's never too late to do the right thing. You're not alone. You're okay. Like, it was almost like she was talking to a friend that was going through it,
Yeah, that's a good take.
It's weird. Instead of, hey, give me my mother. Like, I get it. Okay. Maybe they're trying to do the angle of walking back from the cliff. Please just give me back my mother. It's okay. But it gave me a weird feeling. Just the performativeness of it, but also, why are you talking to your mother's capture like she's a friend that is going through a breakup or something? I don't know. It was weird, in my opinion. Also, the latest is that I think they found the glove with DNA matter on it. But each week there's like new thing. Oh, but it ends up being nothing. It's like, are we just spinning our tires going nowhere? Or are we actually making headway on finding this lady?
My question is, what are we being distracted from? Okay. I am a grandmother. I was not born yesterday. My spidey senses make me want to ask this question. What are we covering up? This is weird. Why is it does not wash? It is not logical to me that they are saying, well, it's because it's one of our own. Okay, one of your own means that her husband was embedded in the Clinton administration. He was a fixer for the Clinton administration. Then he left and he opened up his own business. She does well. He does well. It looks, for all intents and purposes, like her mother. And I don't know if her mother's husband was still alive. I don't know any of that. This doesn't feel right. And your word, JP, performative. If my mom is missing, I can't even get the words out to get her to come back. Somebody else is having to speak for me, because I'd be like you. Look, we thought we lost one of our kids once. Turns out that she fell asleep behind my pillow. She was a little tiny thing. Fell asleep behind my pillow during hide and seek. Okay.
Oh, no way.
Yeah. And like little just scrunched herself up. When you're little, you have this ability to just squeeze yourself into places. And we couldn't find her. Our neighbors had a bunch of kids. We thought we had a bunch of kids at 4. They have 11 children. Bless them. And I couldn't find her, and I couldn't get the words out except I can't find her. And then after that, my heart just thundered. I couldn't. And it was just a half an hour that she was lost. Turns out she was snoozing behind my pillow. The relief I felt But the anxiousness that I felt just looking for my baby, she was 5 or 6. The fact that Savannah Guthrie can get on TV and do this performance art situation, I'm sorry. Have somebody else speak for you, because at this point we're all going, what's up, guys? And we really hope the mom's okay, but what is up? Anyway, that's our daily check-in with what's up with Savannah Guthrie. We'll be right back after this break.
JP here with Rightside. I need to remind you that Inspire Advisors is one of our sponsors, and they are doing amazing work. We know this audience, and you're the kind of folks who believe in standing up for your principles and being good stewards of your resources. What if the companies you're invested in don't reflect your values at all? That's why you need to meet Paul Breyer and his team at Inspire Advisors. Inspire Advisors, they are experts in the field of biblically responsible investing. They can help you grow your bottom line while also being proud of what companies you invest in. Inspire Advisors, you got to go check them out. Here's their website, www.moneypatternwealth.com, and tell them you heard about it on Rightside Radio.
Whole foods,
Right.
eat nutrient-dense foods. Listen, affordability plays a role, or the guidelines rather play a role in affordability. People don't think about this. If you eat the way the guidelines suggest, in other words, if you go out and you buy a pound of ground beef, how many hamburger patties can you make from that? You can feed your whole family, as opposed to going to buy one lousy food, burger from some company out there that's a fake food. If you eat the way the guidelines suggest, whole fruits and vegetables, whole nutrient-dense food, it is cheaper. It will put money in Americans' pockets. It is affordability immediately in your pocket. I know, because I've done it. I've looked at this, and I do it now, and I tabulate what I would normally spend if I were not following our guidelines. You're going to save money by doing that, and in the long run, our country will be healthier. There will be less obesity. There will be less heart disease, less chronic disease, and things will be cheaper that way too. But there's immediate affordability with our guidelines if people really try it out, if people really embrace these guidelines.
How do you respond, though, when people say, well, what about the food deserts? What about the rural areas that don't have access to whole, fresh foods?
I think that's great. No, I think that's a real concern. How do we water those food deserts, if you will? And that's important, and we're certainly working on that. There's the rural health transformation, $50 billion from the federal government that will go to certain states. Alabama has received over $200 million of that. That, I think, $203 million was the statistic that I got this morning when I was checking on that. What's that going to go to? Bringing better health care to rural areas like we have in Alabama and other states, bringing quality health care, improving health care outcomes, educating people about the right foods to eat. And yes, there's a role for trying to get rid of these food deserts as well. But there's so much going on in this administration that we're doing that are win, 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 win. It's promises made, promises kept by President Trump, Secretary Kennedy, and everybody, all of us who work at the Department of Health and Human Services.
Could we talk a little bit more? I remember years ago the rural medicine push. My husband's a gastroenterologist, so I was with him, remembering hearing all of that. Seemed to get better. Now it seems that we're back scrambling, trying to get that rural healthcare situated again. Can you talk to us about that in a little more in depth?
Sure. I think this is the perfect example of how President Trump cares about everybody in this country. We don't just care as conservatives and as Republicans and as members of this administration. We don't care just about the big cities. We care about every part of the country, and we certainly have rural areas that they are facing challenges for healthcare access. And so this rural health transformation is hopefully going to help improve those situations. Again, like I said, $50 billion going out to states, our own state, Alabama benefiting, other states benefiting as well. But no, President Trump realizes we have to make America greater than she's ever been, we have to make America healthier than she's ever been. And this is going to be part of that.
That's great.
Are there any other issues that you want to touch on or things you're working on and initiatives?
Sure. I want to say one thing about some values issues, and then I would like to talk about some things we're doing for affordability and such in the administration.
And talk about Trump RX. Because are y'all part of that?
Yeah. So the idea, so the Trump RX, great idea. The idea being is that people are going to be able to be linked up with ways to get the most affordable drugs they can. Again, this is going to put money in people's pockets immediately and today. Trump RX is a great program. Again, helping people to get linked up to get the drugs that they need at the lowest prices they can get. So yes, incredibly important. The last on the values issues, going back for just a second, one of the things that I think is incredibly important is that we see the rise, unfortunately, in this country of what people will say physician-assisted suicide. I call it euthanasia.
Welcome back to Rightside Radio. I'm Amy Beth with JP. So this is a fun throwback, everybody. This is the fun throwback for what they really meant. We know what they said lately, but aren't we glad for the interwebs? Aren't we glad for videos, recorded speeches, where former presidents say what they really think? And then we see their evolution over time into the abyss. So when it comes to immigration, and we all have friends and family that have bought the lie that they're just here for a better life and we have to help them. And they twist scripture, if they are of that sort, to make that fit what they're saying, except that that's not at all what it says. But even better than that, as we all know, is to use someone's own words. So if you would like to pick a few gems out of the clip we're about to play, feel free. Use them liberally, my friends.
Well, here's the crazy part. So these clips of Hillary Clinton and Obama talking about immigration are both from this past weekend. And after years and years of the insane immigration rhetoric coming from the left, here's two clips of Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama at separate places. Obama's on a podcast. Hillary's at some event. I don't know. Talking about immigration and appearing to come back to a bit of a more common sense rhetoric.
To call it for what it is. Secretary there Clinton. Is a legitimate reason to have a debate about things like migration. It went too far. It's been disruptive and destabilizing, and it needs to be fixed in a humane way with secure borders that don't torture and kill people.
What's also true is that we're a nation of laws, we have borders, and we've got to figure out an immigration policy that is orderly and that is fair and is enforced in a sensible way that is compatible with our values, but may not fully capture the degree to which that kid should have the same chances in life as a U.S. citizen kid. But, you know, we've got to accommodate the reality that the majority of the American people think that there's a difference between somebody who's a U.S. citizen and somebody who's not, and that they want an orderly immigration system. And sometimes I think what happens in the online debate is if somebody suggests, well, we have to have some immigration enforcement, then somebody's going to point at that child and say, well, so you don't care about that kid. Yeah. So you must be a bad person.
I could be wrong, JP, but wasn't he the king? Like I said, I could be wrong. Wasn't he the king? If you don't agree with me.
Oh, yes. And actually, there's another part of that podcast where Obama says, you know, the right does the us versus them. We don't. When literally him saying that statement alone is doing an us versus them. But yeah.
It's cute. It's really, really cute. So that's this weekend. And you didn't think we'd have to throw it back very far, did you? No, we didn't. Because we talked to you. You know this. That's how you know Marco Rubio's speech was phenomenal. Was because they suddenly came out swinging in defense of what they used to believe. They used to believe in sane immigration policies. Now, they all want to talk about amnesty. That's where I completely agree with you. Back to the 2:00 hour discussion of best presidents, worst presidents, most overrated presidents. Ronald Reagan really screwed up with amnesty.
Yeah.
Big time. But because he screwed that up, or whoever his advisors were, it gave permission for future Republicans to consider amnesty, because one of our greats did. It was an unintended consequence that nobody ever dealt with.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. Hey, and whenever I see that, so Hillary, the Clintons, the Obamas, they are still the Democratic Party, in my view. They are still the puppet masters. They still control. Nothing the Democratic Party does happens without Obama's okay, in my opinion. Yeah, as an outsider looking in, because there's a reason he's still showing up to all the events he's at, and everything he does is intentional. That's also with Hillary Clinton. But my question is, when I hear that sort of stuff, even though they agreed, like Obama deported 3 million people throughout his presidency, and he has said stuff like he just said on the record before. So it may look like he's not changing his position, but if you even go listen to stuff that he said at like Kamala Harris rallies, stuff that he said, at DNC stuff over the last 4 years or so, it was not that Obama. So it's like Obama's going back to the 2008 Obama. My question is, why are they doing that? And I think the reason why they're doing that is their internal polling or whatever shows that, look, this immigration issue is a no-win for our party. Like having just wide open borders and flooding America with the third world is not popular with the American people. Newsflash. And that's one of the reasons Trump got elected. I think this is them trying to course correct. But if you notice, they're doing it in a way of, yeah, we're not saying we can't have borders. We're not saying that we can't have laws, but we got to do it in a humane way. So they're still playing off the fact that Trump is deporting everyone in such an inhumane fashion because they're the Gestapo or they're the Nazi party. But it is a course correction for the left of, no wide open borders. We need strong borders. Yeah. But we got to go about it in a humane way. So I think that's why they're doing it. Nothing Obama and Hillary say is unintentional. I think there's a reason Obama and Hillary on the same weekend.
It's so odd.
Said that. I think it's very much intentional and targeted.
I agree. And you're also right. They don't do anything without planning it to the T.
Mm-hmm.
And they can't stand each other. But it is odd that they were singing off the same song sheet over the weekend. And they are going back to what they sounded like. And I'm sorry, once again, I was cooking. I found a clip, and did I send it to JP? No, I didn't. But it is Obama saying the same things this weekend, but from 10 and 15 years ago, because that's what they really thought before the party and the lobbyists got their hooks in them and they changed their position. They used to believe in sane immigration. They did. And then it became unpopular. And like Obama, stick their finger up. Which way's the wind blowing? I'll go that way. And that's what they've always done. And now that the wind is shifting back, well, oops, we better get on this train or we'll lose the midterms. And then guess what? As soon as they lose the midterms or they win, it doesn't matter. They're going to do the same thing. They're going to go back to the second old way, not the same way. They'll go back to let's open the borders. Doesn't matter. They have no principle. Their only value is power. And whatever they have to do to get it, that's what they'll do. And that's what they'll say. Make no mistake about it. But just when in conversation, I think it's helpful to have them and hear them say what they think will get their people elected versus what they'll say after the midterms. It's going to be two different things. Am I wrong?
No, you're not wrong. I don't think so. Because do you really think the AOCs of the world, those Zohran Mamdanis, they believe in strong borders?
No.
They believe in wide open borders.
Ops. They want ops to go down in an all-white outfit like AOC wore and fake crying at the border so they could look good.
Yeah.
They want us to forget that it was Obama who put the children in cages.
Yeah.
He did that. I mean, now he's saying we need to be sane about policy. That's what we need to do.
We're a country of laws.
That's
immigration laws.
That's
strong
what we
borders. Aliens are real. But
believe me, I haven't seen them. But they're not hiding them out in the basement. But they're real.
That's kind of crazy.
That's JP. Now that we've done the what Savannah Guthrie up to today, and what did Obama say today that he doesn't really mean, but kinda. That's segment.
He did backtrack.
But he did say something interesting. He did say he believes aliens are real. Didn't he say he saw them? Or did he say he believes they're real?
He was asked on this podcast, "Are aliens real?" And he goes, "Oh, they're real, but I haven't seen them, and they're not in Area 51 or some basement." He goes, "And if there's such a conspiracy as such, it's such a big conspiracy that the president of the United States hasn't even seen them." That's pretty much what he said. But his first thing was, "Yes, they're real." But then he put up a
That's
post.
good. Everyone, don't you admit that's really good? It's a good voice, JP.
Thank you. But he did put up a post on Instagram and said, whoa. Okay. I was just going along with the podcaster. He said, let me pull up his exact read. But he pretty much backtracked it and said that he didn't mean to say that. But what's crazy to me is that the interviewer, how bad of an interviewer do you have to be when the former president of the United States says, yeah, they're real, and then you don't ask a follow-up? Okay. But he put up, "I was trying to stick with the spirit of the speed round, but since it's gotten attention, let me clarify. Statistically, the universe is so vast that the odds are good there's life out there, but the distances between solar systems are so great that the chances we've been visited by aliens is low, and I saw no evidence during my presidency that extraterrestrials have made contact with us, really."
Okay. So it's Obama doing Obama. That is, I said this, but then I didn't really mean it, so I'm going to backtrack. I said I believe in aliens, and I'm going to backtrack, just like he did with immigration, except for it's worse. I believed in immigration before, and then now I don't believe in it. Oh, wait. Now, insane immigration policy, and now I believe in sane immigration. I mean, like, it's so much I can't keep up. It's like a tornado.
It's like punching Jello.
It's like, that's so good. That's so good. It's like punching Jello, like, stick to a side, man. But you can't, because your God is yourself and you worship at the altar of power, and whatever gives you power. Even if you just want to joke with somebody about aliens, you got to come out and science your answer so it sounds okay. You said it on the podcast, dude. Are we supposed to, which version do we believe? Which Obama do we believe? That's the problem. Nothing's ever clear. Ever. And the thing about great orators is they're clear. You know, we worship his oratory skills. He's not clear. JP, I'm adopting your phrase forever. Punching Jello. Y'all, I dare you to come up with a better phrase than that. Okay, so game on. And hey, in the break, game on for come up with something as good as punching Jello, because that is good. Like, we need a bumper sticker. It's That's like good, punching Jello. Also, your Obama voice, spot on, sir.
Thank you.
So good. All right, listen, do you have like text, and then what kind of questions are we answering for our exit question of the day, JP?
We're going to do President's Day trivia.
I'm going to lose, but I can't wait to play the game.
Okay.
All right, we'll be right back.
I call it physicians and nurses helping murder people. We see this on the rise in this country. If you look at countries like Canada, it's one of the leading causes of death. Yeah. Canada was so proud of itself, this was several months ago, because someone who had been, who had euthanasia, who chose to die by their own hand or a doctor's hand, they donated those organs. That's a horrible precedent to set.
Good grief.
We have states in this country that have adopted bills or adopted those laws. I think most recently it is Governor Pritzker in Illinois has signed a bill into law to allow euthanasia. Governor Hochul is considering that. She will probably sign that in New York. Listen, we've been down this road before. If you look back in the 30s and 40s in Germany, the T4 program, which was the euthanasia program, to relieve the society of the burden of life, quote, they said, life unworth living. Since when do we become God and judge? No life is unworth living. That doesn't mean there's not suffering. But when you say, I take the most vulnerable, whether they be kids with a terrible cancer or adults at the end of their life, and we say that life is not worth living, so we're going to kill them off, that's a huge problem. It is a really dark slope, a really dark precedent, and I feel very strongly about that. I have an op-ed that I wrote that is going to be released on Breitbart that addresses this. That is something we take very seriously in this administration.
It's one you don't really think about.
You really don't. And yet, I think maybe it was Francis Schaeffer way back in the 70s who said that if we are going to allow abortion, the logical conclusion can only be euthanasia. And back then you go, oh, that's ridiculous. And here we are.
Right. I mean, let's face it. We remember what Bill Clinton, safe and rare, talking about abortion. Right. Now what is it? Now it's Katie bar the door all the way up until the day of birth or, goodness gracious, during labor. So you're right. You look at something like that, and that person was a prophet so long ago to talk about that.
So could we, values issue, your choice, because you're you.
Yep.
Values issue, or could we go to affordability for one quick second? I wanted to ask you about PBMs and where things stand with pharmacy benefit managers, because as I understand it, y'all are working on that.
That's right.
Helping people make drugs more affordable. We have someone in our household who takes a medication, and without help, it is a ridiculous price. So we're very thankful for the work that you're doing. But could you speak to the pharmacy benefit manager and their role in perhaps keeping drugs more inflated than they should be?
Sure. I mean, I think if you look, everything President Trump is doing, everything that we're doing at HHS, and a lot of this falls under Dr. Oz at CMS, Medicare, Medicaid, everything that we're doing is to reduce drug prices for people in this country. President Trump has worked hard to bring what we call most favored nation pricing. In other words, people in this country paying prices for drugs that are commensurate or the same as other countries, as opposed to these jacked up and ramped up prices. There are so many things President Trump is doing to work to lower drug prices for all of us. The PBMs are right. That's an area some people call them the middlemen or the middle managers. Everything that we're doing is trying to lower drug prices for people in this country. You mentioned Trump RX. Again, a huge step forward to help people connect with how they get the drugs at the lowest prices they can. Absolutely. If you look, there are, through CMS, there are drugs that are used for cancer treatment and chronic disease where we're working hard, and we have lowered those prices, producing incredible cost savings. We've seen that compared to last year. There's going to be more price savings and more drugs on that list. The prices are coming down in 2026 and more even in 2027. Again, working to lower the cost of these drugs that are important to treat cancer or to treat chronic disease. We are winning on the front of bringing down drug pricing. Are we winning fast enough? Listen, President Trump will always say, no matter how good we do, we could always do better. He is such a lion to move things forward. So we're working hard on that, and we're pushing forward. We want drugs to be as affordable as they can for people in this country. And again, there are concrete things that we have done that have dropped the drug prices down. There is a role to play also thinking about Medicaid services. You know, prescription drugs in Medicaid account for over $100 billion. Again, actively, there is a program out that states can opt into where they're getting lower prices for prescription drugs for Medicaid patients. And you may say, well, Medicaid doesn't affect me. But again, when you think $100 billion or more, it affects all of us because all of us are paying into that. We have lowered drug prices for Medicaid patients if these states opt into the program. The program is called the Generous Program. It's an acronym. The idea of lowering these prices, that's putting money back in the pockets of all Americans, those of us who pay federal taxes anyway.
Yeah.
So we are winning on all fronts when it comes to lowering drug prices, but there's more that we're doing. There's more to come, but we've done concrete.
We're so alike. Hey, it's Amy, Beth, and JP wrapping up a Monday. I don't know about you, JP, but that felt like 5 minutes long worth of a day.
Yeah, today's show flew by.
We have a great show for you tomorrow. We are going to talk to the Charles Plot. How do we communicate? How do we do that without wanting to punch each other in the face? Come on, don't be shocked it came out of my mouth. Okay. Sometimes my husband's like, why do you resort to punching? I'm like, it's just the first thing that comes out of my mouth. I know I should be more refined. So how do we talk? And then to that end, JP's column on the Republican Party and getting criticized for daring to criticize our own party. Are we for free speech or not? Or are we also equally as fragile as the people that we say we criticize, which are very often the Democrats? But guess what, guys? Am I wrong? Do we not do the same thing too? Okay. And then I've got Marx and Satan. And this book is so disturbing. I've had bad dreams about it, but I want to introduce you or refresh your memory to the person that Karl Marx really was. It is not pretty. And I want to talk about it because I want to understand how and why an entire system has been built and threatens to overtake even our own country in our kids' classrooms, at our kids' universities. How in the world did this happen? And how can we fight back? Because we have to. We no joke, must. We must, and it's going to take every one of us. And that's just a preview of 3 things for tomorrow. Now it's presidential trivia. And let's be honest, you and I both know JP's going to win, but I'm going to try.
Okay, well, some of these aren't very hard.
Ask those first.
Which president has lived the longest? 95 years.
Who lived the longest?
Yeah, and I'm going to skip this one because I accidentally saw the answer, so you got it.
JP, it wasn't Reagan.
This one died recently.
It wasn't Nixon. It was George Bush Sr.
Jimmy Carter.
Jimmy Carter? How old was George Bush?
I don't know.
Was he in his 90s? Jimmy Carter. I'm sorry. I wouldn't have.
He died at 94, so 1 year short.
Okay, so I'm close.
Yeah.
But I failed. All right.
Let's see. Let's pick a not hard one.
Thanks, everybody. Did you get it right?
Which president did not speak English as his first language? Was it Grover Cleveland, James Buchanan, or Van Buren?
It was either Cleveland or Van Buren.
I'm going to go Van Buren because that sounds like a non-English name.
Van Buren. Hold on. No, I'm thinking of the one who had also a European wife. Van Buren.
It was Van Buren.
Okay, sweet. Yes.
All right. Which president gave the longest inaugural address to date?
Oh dear, I have no idea. It's probably Trump.
I would say Trump too.
Who was it?
It was William Henry Harrison at 2 hours long.
It wasn't it cold outside when he gave his inaugural? Because isn't that when they were inaugurated in March?
I think so. 8,445 words.
Oh, I would have laid down and taken a nap. Oh, wait, I'm a woman. I wouldn't have been invited anyway.
That's true. Who was the youngest president elected?
JFK.
JFK. It was JFK. Let's see. Lame question.
What's lame about it?
I don't want to ask that one.
Okay.
What the heck? What is the oldest object in the White House?
The desk?
I want to go to the desk too.
The Resolute?
No, it's the Gilbert Stuart portrait of George Washington, saved by Dolly Madison.
Oh, Dolly. I wasn't going to get that right.
Me neither. Okay, here's not a bad one. I don't know the answer, but at least it's not bad. Which president's first lady installed the White House Rose Garden in 1913?
Okay. Not Teddy Roosevelt's wife. 1913. JP.
I think 1913 would be Woodrow Wilson.
So his wife.
Yeah, I'm gonna guess Woodrow Wilson's wife.
Miss Wilson.
And it was.
Okay.
Ellen Axon Wilson.
Okay.
All right, let's do one more. Okay, we're not gonna do that one.
Okay.
Okay, fine, we'll do that one. What are the only 3 qualifications to be elected president as listed in the Constitution?
A citizen.
Yeah.
Above 40.
No, I think it's 35.
35, I'm sorry.
And then what would be the other one?
Never been in prison. I have absolutely no idea what the third one is.
I don't know either. Let's see. At least 35, natural born citizen, and a U.S. resident for at least 14 years.
Huh. Okay.
Interesting.
That's great. Well, you know what? Thank you for learning us, JP.
You're welcome.
That's a good day. All right, you guys. There's a lot to cover tomorrow. Who knows what news is going to break out overnight? But we all know we're going to tune in here tomorrow same time, same channel. Until then, see ya.